It is 6:35. Time for us to begin. If the council member is just about ready to.
I'm good.
All right.
We're over here.
Do we need a mic check?
One for a second over here with Councilmember Smith.
Okay, ready to go? Council member, as soon as you're ready, you may begin.
Thanks, everybody. I am Ward 1 Councilmember Brianne Nadeau. Happy Pride Month. Good evening. It's great to be here. I mostly want to talk to you tonight about the budget. Council received the budget 2 weeks ago, and we've been having hearings diligently ever since. I'll be holding my second hearing tomorrow in the Committee on Public Works and Operations. We always knew this would be a difficult budget with a tax on our federal workforce by the Trump administration, a tax on our local spending by Congress, and additional funding constraints as a result of draconian federal policies that have led to a perfect storm of us having to make significant cuts here. But the budget that we've been presented with, it attempts to balance on the backs of working people and our most vulnerable residents, while simultaneously giving away $1 billion to some billionaires and a lot of tax breaks to corporations and things that frankly aren't going to benefit our community and I don't think are necessary. So I'm going to be focusing on raising revenue to address these needs. And I want to talk tonight about some specific cuts that I'm concerned about and also some specific things in the budget that I think need to be repealed. So there's at least 6 major pieces of policy in there that have nothing to do with the budget. That includes the RFK Stadium deal, substantial changes to street vending that are in conflict with the laws the council has passed, elimination of labor protections on large government projects, a significant weakening of protections for tenants, and an attempt to undo DC's law that protects immigrants regardless of their status. None of this has any reason to be in the budget, so the council will have the opportunity to strike it. But it is important that everybody talks to all the council members about this because the chairman needs to hear from other council members that they think this is important. The mayor also included a repeal of I-82 in her budget proposal. The council voted 8-4 this week to delay the next phase of wage increases for tipped workers. I voted against this delay because this raise for tipped workers has been in the works for years, and people have been counting on this raise, likely have made plans in their personal lives based on that expected income. And I don't think it's fair to claw that promise back. And as a reminder, voters supported this initiative not once, but twice at the ballot box. And so we lost Tuesday on stopping a delay, but we need to push on and make sure that it does not get repealed entirely when the budget advances. So there's a number of provisions that directly impact Ward 1. First of all, and I thank Commissioner Fay for convening us in Ledroit this week to talk about one of these big cuts. The violence interrupter contracts in Ward 1 are being cut in half. Right now, we have a Cure the Streets team under OAG and a team under the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. That Cure the Streets team is being cut entirely. And the ONES program is not being adequately funded or guided. The contract came out and it included one neighborhood that's never had crew-based violence and completely eliminated one neighborhood that has ongoing crew-based violence. So I have been working with the office to rectify that part of the contract, but there isn't enough staffing right now. And in fiscal year 26, we will be essentially in half if we don't restore that funding. Now, the team that got cut serves wards 1 and 4. So I'm working with Councilmember Lewis George on that because we can team up and find that funding to put it back in place, as long as we can convince our colleague who chairs the Judiciary Committee to accept that funding and help us implement it. There are significant cuts in the budget to Medicaid, to emergency rental assistance, I was at the hearing today on healthcare finance, hearing from folks who are impacted by these cuts and community clinics who are very concerned about keeping their doors open with the new structuring in this budget for Medicaid payments and payments for those with undocumented immigrant status who are also covered under our programs. I also was in the Committee on Human Services today, which is my former committee, where we learned that the mayor's budget would roll back all of the reforms that we made on temporary assistance to needy families, putting back in a 60-month cliff for benefits and putting back in monetary sanctions for people on the program if they're not participating in the way that they dictate. This doesn't make sense. This is punishing people in poverty for whatever it is that they're grappling with. And the challenge is, in order to reverse this, we will have to find at least $7.5 million because the mayor estimates that that's what this will save her. I could go on about that because I used to be the chair of the Committee on Human Services and I worked very hard on that reform. If you're interested in the other dangerous cuts in the Committee on Human Services budget, find me. I can talk about it all night. There are cuts to the overall budget for Main Streets, and we're not yet sure how that will impact Ward 1 Main Street programs, which include U Street, Lower Georgia Avenue, Columbia Heights, and Mount Pleasant. There are cuts to clean teams. We have all of the same neighborhoods with clean teams in addition to Shaw and Adams Morgan. There are cuts to the priority bus program, and we don't know yet what impact that will have because we have several priority bus projects coming to Ward 1. But there is some good news. I also went to the Parks and Rec Committee hearing today. As you can tell, I'm spending a lot of time in hearings these days. There are still funds for many park projects in Ward 1. That's Parkview Rec Center, Casey Lewis, Hobart Twins Park, Bruce Monroe, Rita Bright, Amigos Park, and then some smaller parks in Columbia Heights and Mount Pleasant. And there is funding for both the Bruce Monroe and Park Morton projects to move forward, both the park and the housing. And that is something ANC 1B has repeatedly supported. I was also at the superintendent's hearing last night where we talked about cuts to Bridge the Gap program, which has provided funding for field trips for 100 field trips in the last fiscal year. This is really important because those out of school experiences are really transformative for kids. And one of the challenges is wealthier schools will still have field trips, but schools that don't have a PTO that can fundraise won't. The educator wellness grants have been cut. This is a key retention program that we've had over the years. And the pay equity fund for early childhood educators is funded, but it's one-time money, which means we'll have the same uncertainty next year. And that's a big concern for us because it's such a large amount of money to have to replenish each year. And it also creates uncertainty right in the middle of a school year where a lot of families are making decisions about where they want to have their kids enrolled. At Monday's hearing at the Department of Behavioral Health, I learned that there are cuts to the place-based behavioral health programs. One of the grantees in that cohort is HIPS serving 7th and T. So there is money in that pot, but not enough to run all the sites that we have right now. And we can't really reduce the amount for each team because they sort of, they have a certain number of staff it takes to do the work. So we're going to have to either fill that gap or start cutting back on those services. This has been a really effective program for Ward 1. And it's one that we've collaborated on with Mayor Bowser because originally the council funded it. And then last year, the mayor continued that funding. So this is disappointing because we can't move forward with this level of funding. And so we're going to have to identify more funds. The budget also zeroes out the Community Navigator program that I fund each year. And that is substance use disorder supports and services for U Street, Lower Georgia Avenue, Columbia Heights, and Mount Pleasant. The performance parking zone funding remained intact, probably because there just isn't that much in there yet. There's not much to sweep. So we'll have to keep an eye on it year after year. But having the neighborhood management authority up and running helps with that, because then there's a place for it. And we'll be continuing to pursue that with Councilmember McDuffie. So as I mentioned, we're in the hearings now. We are having a weekly meeting with all the council members. And in that meeting, we're reporting in what we're learning in our committees and sharing our priorities so that the chairman can really hear where the gaps are, and also setting some ground rules for various things the committees can and can't do. I put my foot down pretty hard this week when it was suggested that the committee shouldn't be able to send money back and forth to each other to fund priorities. And I think that was heard and received. It is one of the ways that I, as your council member, have the ability to fund programs in Ward 1 by identifying funds that we don't need to spend in certain areas and getting them to the Ward 1 projects. So I think we will prevail on that. And then it ends up being less work for the chairman in the end, which I hope he will ultimately appreciate. One of the big things, and I know you're not going to be surprised when I say this, is that I'm going to be asking my colleagues to take a comprehensive look at who, how, and what we're taxing here in the district. The mayor does increase taxes in her budget, but not in a way that I find strategic or equitable, because I want to lead with the common sense tax reforms that meet the needs of residents and small businesses, with everyone paying their fair share. And some of the proposals in here are either regressive or proven to not be effective. Like, for example, it brings back the QHTC, the qualified high tech company tax incentive, which is something that I rolled back a few years ago and took that funding and put it into behavioral health and homeless services. And the reason for that was there was a lot of evidence that it just wasn't working. It wasn't bringing new companies to the district. The CFO did an entire evaluation of it, saying this is not a good program. So it made a ton of sense to repeal it. So bringing it back does not make sense. And I think we'll be pretty much in agreement on that, which will provide some additional revenue for the budget. If you are just as excited as I am about attending hearings, all of the information about how to attend and participate is at dccouncil.gov/hearings. And we hope you will either testify or submit testimony. Beyond the budget quickly, so that we have time for questions, the Council Housing Committee, which I am now once again a member of, held a hearing May 28th on several housing bills, including 2 on TOPA, which is the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, one from the mayor, which actually would severely limit TOPA's use, primarily would prevent people who live in buildings with affordability covenants from participating in TOPA, or buildings that are under 25 years old. And for me, that just creates more inequity in the program. We've always established TOPA as a right for any tenant. So I reject those 2 measures, but there is other reform we can do on TOPA that I think we can find agreement on. My bill, the Common Sense TOPA Reform Act, would expedite transaction timelines, create consequences for bad actors who slow down the process or mislead tenants, and give tenants earlier access to information about their rights and options and connect them to tenant support organizations. It's largely based on recommendations from a council-funded study done by the Coalition for Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development. And I am a huge supporter of TOPA, and yet agree that it needs reform, which is why I've introduced this bill. The Housing Committee will move it forward in due course. I think it'll be challenging to mark it up before we recess, because our recess is now not going to be until right when we finish the budget, August 1st, as opposed to normally we finish the budget late May and recess July 15th. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of time to do anything else. This week, the council passed on first reading the Vacant to Vibrant Act. This is long vacant or blighted property is a thorn in the side of what might otherwise be a thriving neighborhood. When I was on ANC 1B, this was my big issue, was all the vacant properties in my SMD. And here we are still working on it. Across DC, there are over 2,800 vacant properties and over 340 blighted properties. The legislation we passed today gives the district more tools to bring those buildings back into use and to combat and remedy the systemic issues that lead to such properties falling into disarray in the first place, some of which is related to probate or, other very understandable reasons. So it allows us to both give more teeth for bad actors and more supports for people who just need help moving through that process. And let's see. As many of you know, there was a significant flood on May 27th at 1417 Belmont. Commissioner, I know you've been staying up to speed on that. I know Anthony's been working really hard on that, our MOCR. The cause of the flooding was a sprinkler line failure that flooded the cellar. 6 of the 8 basement tenants have been offered other units from the same property management company. One was already planning to move out and one was an employee of the property. And Birch is providing gift cards to all tenants to replace food items. OTA is offering hotel accommodations. Those go until June 10th. And the Department of Human Services case managers have made outreach to all residents and provided information on medication refills. Martha's Table is providing hot meals and clothing directly at those hotels. And as we get more info, I know Anthony will keep everybody in the loop and we will do so as well. One other small thing, we received a few concerns regarding lawn care at Cardozo Education Campus. Cardozo rep said DGS was scheduled to come out and mow on May 22nd, but it was rescheduled due to rain. So we are getting that information to find out when they're coming back. And you may have noticed excavation work at Cardozo. The Reeves building, of course, everybody's leaving the Reeves Center because it's going to be redeveloped. Octo is moving from Reeves to Cardozo in the former ROTC space. Octo, sorry, the Office of the Chief Technology Officer, a government agency, is moving. And they've been doing the underground wiring. And also, they are going to be building out 4 new classrooms and the rest of the ROTC space, which were left undone in Cardozo's modernization. And something I've been trying for a long time to get funded. So I'm really pleased that that's happening as part of Octo's build out. It's very exciting for the school community. And I'm fascinated to learn more about how the operation of a government agency in a school building is going to work. And I have their hearing coming up. So we're going to find out all about that. Okay. My next bring on your block, my community office hours is June 16th, 6 to 8 at Patango Gelato on Columbia Road. DPW is going to be joining us. So bring all your questions for them. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'm welcome to entertain any questions at your pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your appearance here. Thank your staff for your constant availability. A quick question from me on the 1417 Belmont. I believe it's correct that there was a fatality in that incident. Is that something that your office can confirm?
We have not been able to confirm that. I did see your message about that and I could not get HCMA to confirm that. So we will follow up.
Okay.
Yeah, because we hadn't heard that until we saw your message. Yeah.
And to sort of link this together with what we're going to be talking about later about the building collapse at 1111, 1113 V Street. And in what circumstances is it normal for DOB, for example, to produce a report after an incident that seems to be out of the...
I think generally, I mean, if there's a fatality, yes. I don't know if I don't think the flooding triggered a report because the explanation for that was pretty straightforward in that it was a pipe. But I will say, just to offer some breadcrumbs, 1417 Belmont is a property that I've been working on since I was on the ANC. Originally, it was a building owned by Community of Hope. It was transitional housing. They sold it to a developer. The developer started excavating. It kept falling down. It fell on people a couple times, similar to V Street, although no one died. And ultimately, the chief building official decided to have it raised. Then we got sued for raising it and diminishing its property value, but then it finally got sold and built. While it was being built, I raised a concern about a code modification and DOB said it's fine. Now, I will say that the code modification to not have rear egress does not seem to have impacted anything in the evacuation of this building. So there is that, but I can share any of the files you want on the past, but I think there's still some questions to be answered and
Sure.
I'm happy to work through them with you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And on 1111, 1113 itself, I don't know how closely you're tracking. We're sort of feeling a little stonewalled by DOB on getting a document that apparently exists and maybe has been transmitted to council, but has not been transmitted to us. I don't know if you have any insight.
I would say that if you FOIA at my office, you might find what you want.
Hmm. Next question from Commissioner. Vice Chair Harris, please.
It's already on.
Yes, all the microphones are on today. No touching of buttons, anybody.
Okay, I won't touch any buttons. Council member, I'm just curious, I may have missed this, but are you or any council members addressing the mayor's several lines in her large budget proposal around DC being a sanctuary city and that repeal?
Great question. So that is a provision in the Budget Support Act. It's one of a number of pieces of legislation in the Budget Support Act that doesn't have a nexus to the budget, meaning it's not germane to the budget. It is something many of us have recommended to the chairman that we strike, which is a pretty simple process. It's really just a red line. There's no fiscal impact. So I do expect that will happen, but it is important for people to weigh in with other council members and ask that they weigh in with the chairman on that, because he is looking to the other council members on what to do there.
Great.
I have done so.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. It was something that I was really proud of that DC called itself, and I find it complete bullshit that the mayor would put something in there like that and that or completely violate the safety of all of DC.
Yeah, I am with you, and I think that most likely it'll be removed. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenzik.
Councilmember, how are you?
Great to see you.
Great to see you as well. I agree. There's a lot of bad actors currently on the council. I completely agree with that. I'm sorry. Thank you. The couple questions for you. You said SMD. I know your SMD was my SMD 1B05.
Yes,
and
1B05, the best MD in the city.
It is very, very good SMD. There's not too much vacancy, so I'm not really sure what you're speaking about.
Oh, it's long gone, friend. I was an ANC like 15 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you were saying currently. I got it. Okay. Are you guys currently looking into the allegations with Mayor Bowser's and the trips and all this stuff that's been discussed on the news?
We do leave that to the bodies that look into waste, fraud, and abuse. So that would be the Office of the Inspector General and the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability.
Makes sense. And last question, are you planning on running in for council?
Oh, that is way too early to make that decision. Right now, focused on the budget and the RFK deal, but I appreciate your interest and you will be among the first to know when I make that decision.
She already let slip one tidbit today. She's not going to do two, okay? Commissioner Fay, please.
I need to share. We share these things. I know we're going to hear from the mayor's office in just a moment, but from the council perspective, the title of the budget is Pathway to Growth, and so you talked a lot about the cuts. I'm talking to you through Miguel's head. Which is not. You talked a lot about the cuts from your perspective, from the council's perspective. What are the things in the budget that position DC for future growth?
So I believe that what makes a strong city and generates a strong economy is investments in childcare, education, housing, public safety. Right. That is what brings people to a city. It's what makes companies want to come here. And it's what ultimately helps us thrive in any part of the city. And you can see that in the investments that folks are trying to make in downtown right now. What are they doing? They're adding housing. They're adding parks. They're trying to revitalize that area with some of those very same investments. So I believe that making cuts to all those programs really is going to be counter to that goal. And that's why we're going to try to focus on that. Thanks for the question.
Any further commissioner questions? Yes, Barrio.
Hi, council member. Thank you for joining us. I was wondering if you could expand about the Common Sense TOPA Reform Act and, just your thoughts about that act and how you're planning to support it.
Sure.
And what good you think it can do. And how it's, I guess, an improvement upon the mayor's proposal in the Rental Act.
Yeah, and they're just both very different. And let me say that actually a lot of people who support the Rental Act also support the Common Sense TOPA Reform Act because it looks at what are the fundamental problems with TOPA, and they're actually pretty straightforward. So one is there are some redundant things in the process that we can cut out, like there's an extra 45-day period at the end that nobody really knows what it's for and it's never used. So boom, take that out, right? One of the biggest challenges with TOPA is the predators that come and try to tell tenants that they're going to help them, but really what they want to do is make money off the deal, and they slow down the process and they make it more expensive and they confuse tenants. And we have a lot of very intelligent tenants here, but lawyers can run circles around them. So we create financial penalties for that behavior and really make it hurt for them to do that. We make sure that tenants have quick and easy access to all the information they need at the Department of Housing when a TOPA deal is coming, and access to the community-based organizations that can help them through that deal. We create, we mandate templates for TOPA deals, pro forma, so that not every tenant association has to start from scratch on something that happens pretty often. So we know that TOPA has worked in this city. It has helped tens of thousands of tenants retain their homes, whether that's an affordable rental, a co-op, or a condo purchase. And there are other cities around the country now that are trying to replicate this work. So it's not the time for us to pull back on it. It's the time for us to tweak it and make it the best it's ever been. The law was introduced 45 years ago, and it's absolutely time to reform it, but not in a way that creates winners and losers.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, we'll turn to Q&A on Zoom. Community members are, of course, welcome to submit questions in the Q&A. First one is from Amanda, who says, for residents who stand by you on no public funding for RFK and want to advocate with the rest of the council, like you suggested at the beginning, what are some of the messaging you think will resonate with other council members on the fence about this?
Great question. I think for a lot of us, we want to understand the financial implications of the deal. So for example, first, we're being asked to invest about $1 billion in the infrastructure, then about $1 billion in the stadium, then give all the tax revenue back to the team, all the ticket sales back to the team. So what we're doing at the council right now is we're hiring our own fiscal analyst to go through the deal and make recommendations to us. And stick with us on that and keep pushing for that as the guiding light to what happens next. Also, the timeline is very condensed. So I don't personally think we should be considering this as part of the budget. It's a very complex issue. It deserves its own hearing and its own community input. So also pushing for it to be removed. Chairman Mendelson has a lot of power here, and he represents everyone here in the city. So I definitely urge you communicate with him. But there are a number of us who have concerns with this deal. And it's also important that, none of us makes a side deal with the team to get something we want for our community at the expense of this being a good deal for the whole city. And so we want council members to really stick together and think about this as a whole city challenge to solve. So I would say the same advocacy you normally do, and because we all have 5 at-large council members, making sure that you're talking to them and sharing your concerns and your specific concerns, whatever they may be, because there are, I think, a lot to choose from, frankly.
Thank you for that. We have a hand up in the audience online from Frank Chauvin. You can go ahead and take yourself. Wait, now you can take yourself off mute.
Good evening, council member. Thanks for your presentation this evening. I am curious about your commitment to public safety. As you mentioned, one of the pillars you think in your budgeting process. Can you tell me, U Street continues to be a bastion of lawlessness. I didn't hear you mention, I haven't heard anything from your office, but maybe you did mention it. We've had 3 people shot in their back and their stomach at 9th and U 3 weeks ago. 2 days later, 2 people shot at T and 9th in the back and the leg. This past week, a juvenile shot at 9th and Florida. It's an epidemic. It's a crisis. It's an emergency. It's my neighborhood. We're not getting the public safety we deserve. What in your budget, and I understand that the violence interrupters aren't appropriate for us, well, but what is? Okay, because what we're doing is not working. And I ask that you address this in your budget, and I ask that you honestly commit to something that will help us, because it's out of control. Nobody wants to come to U Street, and your attention and commitment and honesty here about what will work with some changes would be appreciated. And so, if you could let me know what kind of consideration you might offer in your budget, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I mean, I share your understanding of the situation, which is that there is a lot of chaos on U Street right now and in the weekend evenings and even other nights as well. You know, one place the mayor and I have really been to able to work together is the nightlife task force for U Street. And you're going to hear from the deputy mayor for public safety later. She's helped make sure that these programs have been implemented, and especially for U Street. And I think that multi-agency coordination is critical. But I think you know from the many, many, many conversations we've had about this, that U Street really needs a place management entity that can help get things under control in a way that is dedicated to U Street. And unfortunately, that's not in the budget because the Neighborhood Management Authority still has to have a hearing and go through the committee process. But as I mentioned earlier, the funding to stand that up, the parking zone is still allocated. So when we do get that legislation through, that will go up. You know, I wish I could tell you that I or anyone here had an answer to how do we get everybody to put down the guns when they go out on U Street, when they party, when they drink too much, and to stop those conflicts. But we are working very hard on that, right? We got the moratorium so that no new clubs can open up because that has been a huge driver of that. We've got additional police, I mean, more police on U Street on the weekends than probably anywhere else in the city, trying to break up those fights. We've got DPW out, and I know we're working to get some answers on the data around the towing going down, but getting those illegally parked vehicles that often have firearms and often allow them to recover firearms, that's all part of it. But anybody who stands up here and says they know the answer definitely isn't giving you an honest answer, because these are really complex issues. But I do know that we are all trying to address it. And with the youth piece, you know, I think that's one area we have to ensure that we are fully funding all of the summer youth programs and, you know, keeping rec centers open. We had a great hearing today with DPR. They're doing an incredible job in all of their youth programming, and, you know, ensuring that our public safety partners are out there too. Department of Youth Rehabilitative Services has a credible messengers program that works with justice involved youth to make sure they are helping engage and that youth aren't going back and picking up guns. It's a lot of work, but we have a really dedicated team in the public safety cluster doing that work.
I'll ask a follow up on that, and then that'll be it for the Q&A,
Sure.
if that's all right. And I want to be clear that I endorse what you just said. We're going to move a resolution tonight on the funding for violence interruption programs. So I don't want to sound like I'm just coming in with the, you know, only the law and order response, but we
Yeah,
have
sure.
heard it suggested several times up and down the U Street corridor that there's a gap into which fall the people who sell alcohol out of car trunks
Yeah.
that ABCA can't enforce because they're not licensed
Yeah.
operators, obviously, and the MPD, it's a misdemeanor. It's not the high priority. Is that something you're thinking about a legislative fix to, or is there a different approach?
Yeah, great question. We also share that concern. There's been a little bit of a hot potato going on with that issue. And I think ultimately, if we need a legislative fix, then I'll be happy to pursue that. But I think what it just requires is some clarification between the agencies. We are working on some updates to the street vending law. So if we need to take that up when we do, we will. But frankly, I just think that there's some misinterpretation of who legally is able to act. And that's what we're trying to work through right now.
Thank you. Please keep us posted.
Sure.
Thank you again for your appearance. We can move into regular order now. We have a couple other guest speakers coming up in our special session today with lots of visitors. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 7:10. Secretary Fay, will you please call the roll?
Sorry. Councilmember, Commissioner Barrio.
Here.
Commissioner Sycamore. Commissioner
Present online.
He's online.
Great. Commissioner Sycamore is online. Commissioner Lemon Strauss. He is en route, but not here yet. Commissioner Kenzik.
Present.
Chair Trindade Duramo, present. Commissioner Holden,
Here.
Vice Chair Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Hanrahan. Here. And Commissioner Fay is also here.
All right, with 8 out of 9 present, we have a quorum. First thing to consider is the consent agenda, which includes the meeting agenda that we will operate on tonight, which does include some modifications to show courtesy to our guests, as well as the meeting minutes that are in the packet from our May meeting and the list of ABCR committee non-protest items on page 17. Are there any motions related to the consent agenda? Commissioner Kenzick.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I move to remove Elimna, I'm sorry if I'm saying the name wrong, from the consent agenda, and we could discuss under new business.
All right, the motion is to remove Elmina's. No, that's improper. The motion is to remove Elmina from the consent agenda, which will place it on new business. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay.
Aye.
The ayes have it unanimously. Elmina has been removed. I'm adding it to new business.
Thank you,
Are there
Chair.
any further motions related to the consent agenda? No. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I move that we adopt.
Thank you,
consent
Commissioner.
agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, nay.
Aye.
The consent agenda. Thank you, Commissioner Sycamore on the speakers. The consent agenda is adopted. First item of business today is a slot for the office of the council member. I don't know, Nicole, do you have anything in addition to the council member? Wonderful. We'll breeze right on. Second slot, office of the mayor. The Mokers have given up their time today in favor of the deputy mayor for public safety and justice, Lindsay Appiah, who's also a constituent of Commission 1B. You have 20 minutes to speak and take questions. If you would indulge us, please.
So I am actually a 12-year resident of 1B06.
Oh, nice.
So that's my commissioner right here. And in fact, true story, when he was getting signatures, I ran into him on the sidewalk and was one of the signatures by my apartment. So
He was everywhere.
yes, exactly. I was like, I don't know if I can sign it, but yes, I am a resident. So for 12 years, I have lived here in 1B06. So I am back again. So it's good to be with you all. I'm Lindsay Appiah. I'm the deputy. I'm sorry. It's bumping for you all. I'm the deputy mayor for public safety and justice. And for those who I haven't met before, which I've been here a few times actually. So it's good to see those who I'm seeing again. A little bit about me without taking too much time. This is my 13th year in DC government. I originally moved here in 2001 to the district. Had a little hiatus in the South. I was in Nashville, Tennessee for about 5 years, but have been here 19 of the past 24 years. And like I said, 12 of them here in 1B06. So it's good to be with you all to talk about a couple of things. First, obviously, we're going to talk about the FY26 budget that the mayor presented to council last week, which we're calling our growth budget. But we really can't talk about FY26 without talking about FY25. As I said, this is my 13th year in DC government. I was at DYRS for 9 years. And I've been in the deputy mayor's office for 4 years, 4.5 years. 2.5 years as the deputy mayor. And I can say, and I don't think I'd be speaking out of turn for any of my colleagues to say, this is definitely was the most difficult budget process that we have experienced for a host of reasons that many of you are likely aware of. So when we're speaking about fiscal year 25, as you're likely aware, in March, as a result of the continuing resolution, we became aware of a requirement by Congress that we needed to cut the district's budget by about 1.13 billion in the third quarter of the year, and could not get to FY26 without doing that. We did a lot of work to try and get a fix. Obviously, Senate passed a fix for that, but the House still has not taken that up. So that put us in a position of really having to pivot very quickly and figure out how to close that $1.13 billion gap. There were some things that guided us. We did not want we wanted to be as little disruption to critical city services for our residents as possible. We wanted to, our employees matter. And oftentimes we talk about our residents and you all matter and you're why we serve, but our team is deeply important to us as well. So how do we make sure that there's as little disruption as possible to our employees? And those are really the two biggest guiding principles. To get there, there was a lot of work done by the CFO, the chief financial officer, the budget team, and all of our agencies to close that budget gap. And we did it a few different ways, just for your awareness. All of this is up on budget.dc.gov. You can kind of see the full picture of how we got here. We instituted a hiring freeze, which has been in place, which got us about 63 million. We cut about $175 million in non-personnel services. If there were contracts that we could freeze, we froze them. If there were grants that we could adjust without there being significant disruption to the services we're providing, we did that. We shifted about 202 million in spending costs that could wait in FY25 to FY26. We moved about 117 million in special purpose revenue funds that had their own kind of authority that would allow us to spend against that. And all told, that got us to the point where we were able to close the gap without any furloughs or layoffs, which was important, and no facility closures. And it really was a discussion. We were like trying to figure out if we had to close fire stations, how could we do that safely? So it was a difficult process. Another priority and something that we are happy we were able to do is make sure that we had fully funded all of our summer programming, so SYP, all of our DPR programs, kind of like anything that was in the summer, particularly for our young people. All of that is fully funded. Summer school, like we wanted to make sure there was no changes to summer school. And then, public safety, that we're able to have firefighters and 911 operators and police officers and all of those things that we needed to make things run. So that was how we closed the gap in FY25. And what brings us to FY26, we knew going into FY26 before anything happened with the CR that our February budget estimate from the CFO showed that we needed to cut about $1 billion over the course of a financial plan. And so that was as a result of what you all know, that the instability in our federal government, which has often been a place where we're very stable, and the things that are happening in our economy, tariffs and all of these changes, the CFO downgraded our budget estimate. So we needed to take that down about $1 billion over the financial plan. The mayor says, and it's true, there are a couple of ways that you can close a gap like that. You either bring in more money, or you do a couple of things. You find ways to bring in more money and you make cuts. And so those were two of the things that we had to do. We always, in our budget process, have like guiding principles. We try to like start with some value statements or things that are going to moor the decisions that we're making across the clusters. And so the questions that we asked ourselves for this one there were three. Does it keep people and families in DC and attract new residents? Does the things that we're doing create an economic activity to fund city services and programs? And does it attract new businesses and create new jobs for DC residents? Those were really, we were like, we've got to grow. We know that what the CFO said is that with what is going on in our particularly in the federal space, we could see approximately 40,000 jobs lost over the course of the financial plan in the district. And those are 40,000 residents and families and otherwise. And so really we were saying we can either accept that this is just what's going to happen, or we could try to find a way to mitigate that and to, in fact, turn that around. And that means replacing what is, again, been very stable in the federal space with other types of employment and other industries and attract into our city. Last year, when we were doing a lot of the downtown work, Richard Florida, he is an urbanist who wrote a book called The Creative Class, spoke to us about like how he did some work on how we should be thinking about DC. And he was like, there's no city that has like more intellectual capital and people than Washington, DC. And so we are ripe for even when there's changes like what we're seeing in the federal government, that we still have people who are bright and capable and talented here. So attracting industries and new businesses here because of the type of intellectual capital we have here is a priority for us, because we want people to stay in DC. And part of that is because we have been in 2024, we call it our comeback year from like the long tail of the pandemic, where we had the fastest growth of any state. We want to be the 51st state, all this Greenland and all this, like we want to be the 51st state. We grew faster than any other in 2024. We saw We were the fastest improving school district. We had 27 million visitors to the district last year. Our violent crime was the lowest it's been in 3 decades. And so there is momentum, and we want to keep that going regardless of what's happening in the federal space. And so that was really what we had an eye towards. And so there were things that we needed to do as part of that. When it comes to attracting businesses, we do have to cut red tape. We're a local government, so we know. I would love to say there's no bureaucracy, but that would be a lie, right? Like there's necessary bureaucracy, and then there's ways that were redundant and inefficient. And we have to be honest about that and about the ways that we can look at inefficiencies and also policy changes. I'm in public safety. 2 years ago, I think I stood in here when we had the worst year we had 274 homicides and said, there are times where we have to adjust. We have to change our policies because they may have worked at one point, but we always have to be flexible and say, where are we now? And how are things going now? And so in looking at where we are in 2025, if we're going to attract businesses, well, the region is fighting for them, because Maryland has a lot of the same federal issues and deficit issues in Virginia. And what we hear from businesses is that some of the challenges of doing business in DC don't exist in Maryland and Virginia. And we don't want to lose the opportunity to attract businesses here where we believe is the best place and where we want our residents to benefit because of things like because of policies or things that are not efficient, effective, or otherwise. And so there's a number of proposals in the budgets to do that. There's always going to be a give and a take. So there are more business attraction grants and incentives on one side. And then we did have to do things like we've got to streamline some of our zoning procedures. We've got to make some changes on who can appeal. We do, because if we're holding up projects in affordable housing or otherwise, people will and are moving on. They are. There is the Rental Act. I'll say this, that there is always going to be space for people to debate what the best policy is, and we need to work on things together. But what I'm seeing and what I know to be true as deputy mayor in public safety is that we can't even remove people who have committed violent offenses from apartments. And I hear from residents who are like, we're paying good rent and we're about to destroy our voucher program because the bad actors who we can't even remove or can't move along are now creating an environment where people don't want affordable units or to have people with vouchers in their buildings. Is that the outcome that we're looking for, right? If not, we have to make some changes. So there's a very pragmatic, sometimes picture of what we're doing, because what I know to be true is sometimes the unintended consequences for those that we want to help are greater than we actually want to be. And so that's where we are, that if we don't make changes right now, we're growing slower than anybody else in new construction in our region because there's some things going on that are making it less attractive to people to build here. So you heard, we need to put vacant lots back to productive use. There are too many blighted and vacant lots. And so there's some eminent domains things that we need to do. A sales tax delay. And yes, and I'm just going to say, yes, you know that we have proposed repealing I-82 and people can be on both sides of this. But what we're hearing is in an industry that is important to us, that has driven a lot of our economy of restaurants and hotel spaces, that they're struggling. And so how we help them, they're saying that this is not something that they see in Maryland and Virginia. And so that is on the table. And it's something that certainly that council will work its way through as to what the best way to go. But we made that proposal because that's what businesses and many, quite frankly, restaurant employees were telling us. So those are some of the things in the business attraction space that you all know that we're leaning in on sports, entertainment, and tech. We obviously have the RFK proposal and the idea. And one of the things, I think everybody will weigh in on what the right deal is or otherwise, but we also, I think what I just said about how much people are willing to invest, there is a question of we have $2.7 billion people are willing to invest that will help us to much more quickly stimulate growth in that space, or we have nothing. And so there may be deal points we need to work out, but in a time where there's no guarantees, because we all see how our nation's economy is looking, and quite frankly, the world's economy, we in DC are going to do everything we can to get every benefit for our residents that we can. There is money in the budget to renovate some of our theaters here, the Howard Theater and then the Lincoln Theater and then the National Theater as well. They have some unique like renovation challenges, so there's money in the budget for that. And then we're investing in things like tech incubators and startups, because what we're hearing there is that this is an attractive place for tech businesses. And so we really want to create that environment. And then there's like the things like sometimes we're like, well, what delights people? 2 years ago, it was pickleball, without a doubt. Mayor was like, what is pickleball? And every budget engagement forum we went to, people were like, we want pickleball. And so this year, we're expanding gaming entertainments for like commercial bingo, which I mean got like a roar. That's our seniors, right? And poker and blackjack tournaments. Like we can't do those in hotels or any spaces right now in the district. Okay, so we've made proposals around that. We'll continue to support downtown. There's a lot of activations. Capital One will be renovated over the summers for the next several years. That's how they're doing it. And so we're doing a lot of activations with the downtown bid because we really do want it to be like an actual, we call it gallery place, but we're like, let's make sure that we're really investing in culture and that in galleries and in Chinatown, a Chinatown renewal initiative, creating a gallery square between 7th and 8th Street. And so there's things in there for that. We continue to invest in our schools. That's like a #1 priority for the mayor, for us, that our kids are taken care of, that if we want families to be here and stay here, our schools have to be great. And so there's a $123 million increase in fiscal year 25 for schools to support DC public schools and the charter schools. And that includes a $270 million to support pay raises for DCPS and DCPS charter school teachers. All of the money, there was no change in our modernization money. So there's $2 billion for 30 school modernizations. And then there's some other types of investments, like some of our kids still need some help coming back from the pandemic. And so what we saw over the past couple of years is high impact tutoring really is yielding results. And so there's $3 million to continue high impact tutoring. And then we continue to have full funding for PKEEP and childcare subsidy and pay equity fund. And so that's schools. Obviously, I'm public safety. And so we like at its best, when things are really going well, you hear very little about us and we're just sort of in the background. But we know that we continue to have work to do. You just heard about what's going on in the U Street corridor. I would argue that the issue is that nobody wants to come to U Street, but everybody seems to want to come to U Street, everybody, which is, Commander Rooney's issue. So we continue to need, I am very honest about our force strength, because oftentimes we hear about like officers. Well, some people believe we have too many. We're at 3196, which for us is a 50-year low of officers in a very vibrant and active city where there's a lot of things going on. We have World Pride this weekend. We have, at the same time, there's usually about 6 large things going on at our city at any given point in time, which is great, but also means we need to make sure our neighborhoods are taken care of. So we continue to invest in MPD hiring, but also in continuing to fund technology, which we have to, our camera programs, our real-time crime center, things that make our officers more efficient, because we can't rely on the numbers. So we have to be smart about how we're using technology. And then we also in public safety really invest in partnerships. My office administers a number of grants, including our Safe Passages, which is about helping our kids. You see them around Cardozo, our green vests, and in various 12 different priority areas around the city. And so there's 9.7 million for that. There's 2 million for safe commercial corridor grants with a lot of our bids and community development corporations. We do grants where they have things like community safety ambassadors, events, cleaning, like just all of the things that create a clean and safe DC. And then we also are putting money in to raise the salary of our 911 and 311 call takers, which was a huge priority for the mayor. That this will allow us to be #1 in the nation in 911 and 311 call taker pay. And then there's money for retention. These are hard work. It's not, all of these positions across public safety. We want to hold on to good employees who are well trained, who are able to work in our very challenging environment, and we need to pay them a fair wage to do that. So there's money for that. I'm just going to keep moving so you can ask questions. There's a lot of money for investing in a clean DC. There's 4.6 continue to have clean corridors, which is difficult and a big priority. We're expanding the curbside composting program, which was like hugely popular. There's $2.3 million for that to expand to 12,000 households. We continue to invest in our parks. We love our parks and our libraries and our recreation centers. So there's 166 million to complete the modernization of 6 DCPL libraries. And then 188 million to support modernizations of 22 recreation centers, pools, parks, various things like that. And then also one thing we love, $400,000 in stipends for our DPR volunteer coaches who do a ton of work, who really help us. Like I consider it public safety as well, keeping our young people safe. And they're using so much of their own money to transport kids and to buy food and things like that. There's also 89 million that's in the RFK space to build a sportsplex. Our kids don't have indoor pools or track or any of these things. They have to go to Maryland. And so part of the package for RFK includes a sportsplex that would allow us to have indoor track, gymnastics, some of the sports that we are not currently able to have in the district. There is a lot. There are a lot of trade-offs, and you'll see, because the realities are like, just like any household budget, you have the budget you have, you can find ways to bring more in, but we, unlike our federal government, have a balanced budget, right? Like do not run a deficit. So you can see all of the kind of puts and takes, and the full budget proposal on budget.dc.gov, all of the documents are there. But I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there are hard things, like I'm just going to address one of the things that came up about sanctuary city. And I think that our proposal is that the Sanctuary Values Amendment Act does not talk about whether or not we're a sanctuary city. In fact, it's a piece of legislation that's in the Department of Corrections, actual enabling statute that says, specifically, it talks about what the Department of Corrections will do, that they will or will not provide information on immigration. I think many people have said to us, they believe that dealing with that discrete issue of whether or not the Department of Corrections cooperates with immigration enforcement has anything to do with whether or not MPD all of a sudden becomes deputized. No, none of that is actually the case. We don't do that. We don't believe in that. None of that comports with our priorities or otherwise. So if we want to deal with the discrete issue of what happens at the Department of Corrections, as the mayor said, prior to even this particular bill, there was a longstanding mayor's order that addressed the issue. This bill didn't come into existence until 2020. I think it went into effect in 2022. And so we're willing to continue to do the work to make sure that we're addressing those issues, but we're not turning into a city that all of a sudden is going to have MPD cooperating with ICE or giving information. None of that is the case, and that's not what that bill does. So I just want to sort of put that out at the start because there's questions around that. But I will say this, that having sat in this space and in government 13 years, one of the things that we have an absolute responsibility to do is to do everything possible to protect the autonomy of our city, which is uniquely vulnerable and have people who are uniquely involved at the federal level in the operations of the district. And one of the ways we have to do that is to actually keep all of our people safe, is to be very wise. And wisdom is in short supply. Like, this is a time where we have to be smart about how we spend our money. We have to be smart about the policies we have in place. We have to be smart about how we protect people. And so that is really what we're trying to do on all fronts, financially, with our policies in place, because the federal government, as you can see, very much is happy to take away Medicaid, very much happy to take away Homeland Security grants, very much happy to take away everything from anybody. We're going to do everything possible to make sure that the District of Columbia has every resource available for our residents. And so that has also been like an undergirding principle of the entire year, which has been a unique challenge. So
Thank you very much. We'll turn to some questions. Commissioner Fay.
Deputy Mayor, first off, thank you for being here. Secondly, thank you so much for sending really talented members of your team to LaDroit Park on Tuesday night. We appreciated their presence. They made a big difference in the community. One of the things that I think catches my attention, the intersection of the budget initiatives that you just talked about, as well as the public safety efforts that you lead. We are in LaDroit Park at least losing people. We had 46 shell casings picked up off the park at LaDroit 2 Fridays ago.
Yep.
We lost a couple of neighbors who just moved out. The last shooting we had neighbors that moved out. Before that, we had neighbors that moved out. And so as I think about the idea of a growth agenda, and I think about where to invest money, it's I would suspect, less expensive to keep taxpaying neighbors in the city than to lose them and try to fill them. And yet, at the same time, part of what we heard from your team and Reverend Judy from Inner City is that the violence interrupter program has been cut. That program has grown on me.
Sure.
Commander Connors is here tonight. We're looking forward to meeting him. His predecessor, Commander Pulliam, had regularly said, we're not going to arrest our way out of these problems.
That's correct.
It requires a broader set of solutions, and it requires different types of resources. And so I guess just wanted to get your thought about investing in the population of DC and thinking about maintaining what we have as we continue to grow, and how that fits with your thinking about some of the cuts that were made in the budget relative to programs around public safety that are outside of and add to MPD.
Yeah, so what I would say, first of all, when it comes to violence interruption, so on the executive side, there were no cuts. So people are talking about cure. I'm just going to say the Office of the Attorney General paid for that out of surplus. They have not, over however many years that it was there, ever budgeted for it. So counting on surplus to pay is obviously not the most stable way. And so had they budgeted for that, that would have been a part of their primary budget. They did not. That being said, my job as deputy mayor is to make sure that people are coordinated. We have investments in Ward 1. Reverend Judy alone has 4 different grants. Okay. So when I look at how we're spending to me, it's not about money, it's about effectiveness. And when it comes to violence interruption, I've spent 13 years in this space, both at DWRS and now. I can tell you that we get better results when we're coordinated with one good person than we do with 4 violence interrupters who may not be the right people. And I can tell you this, that as the deputy mayor responsible for Ward 1 right now, that for what the money we're paying, you're not getting, because you don't have the right people to mediate the type of crew-based dispute that's there. So we're going to make moves within the portfolio we have now, and that doesn't require more money. That requires better coordination. Right now in Ward 1, we have safe passage workers, we have violence interrupters, we have credible messengers, we have police officers, we have family success centers. We have a host of people and community-based organizations who are there. So this is not an issue of how much more money we can give. What we need to do is get to the root. What's happening in your community, I can say beyond a shadow of doubt, is that Columbia Heights Village is beefing with LaDroit Park, right? We know that to be the case of primarily what's driving this. Reverend Judy, both Cure and ONCE have VIs and CHV, yet it hasn't resolved it at this point. So what we are working on this next week is bringing in people who can mediate that dispute, because it's not the right group of people. So I'll say this, that I would love to say that we have resources to just continue to fund everything. But what we have to do, so in 2023, we had more money in violence interruption and prevention programs than any other jurisdiction in the country, over $100 million across the portfolio. And yet we had the worst year in shooting that we have ever had, probably since in about 30 years or more in the District of Columbia. So that isn't what it is. It's about coordination. So we're committed to doing everything that we need to do to bring down violence in your community, but that's going to look like having the right resources. We believe in violence interruption, but the way that we have to do violence interruption is really to make sure that those organizations that are employing VIs really understand what's going on in that community and have the right people who have the credibility to mediate those disputes. And that's what we're invested in, is using our resources widely and having a continuum versus just adding more people who are not bringing down the violence. Yeah.
Just in response to that, 100% appreciate efficiency.
Yeah.
I think whenever a program that is impacting people's safety and daily lives is changed, it's good to be able to talk about those things.
Yeah.
So we'd love to continue that conversation with you
100%.
so that folks know where that is going and how those changes are being rolled out.
Of course.
If I can ask you to clarify, did you?
Yeah.
How much? Wasn't clear to me if you were disputing the entirety of the intercity collaborative model, or is there a place for it and it's just a reduced?
There's a place. So inner city, I love Reverend Judy, right? Like we work with Reverend Judy in many different contexts. When I say she has 4 grants, it means she had a grant with Cure, a grant with ONCE, a grant for a family success center. And I think that there are different expertise that CBOs have. Reverend Judy and the inner city collaborative is excellent when it comes to social work and wraparound services, and really coming and supporting. They're great. And I would say this, the VIs in LaDroit are great, right? So there's certain spaces where Reverend Judy and her team are doing an excellent job. What I'm saying is that it's not the panacea, that in fact, we are going to need to take more experienced VIs in mediation and move them into the space, which we already have. So it's not about funding more with Reverend Judy so she can have more VIs. It's about having the right combination of people for what is actually driving the violence between Columbia Heights Village and LaDroit. And so I believe that we have those in our portfolio, and bringing in new VIs. Right now, I can tell you that the VIs who are in Ward 4, excellent VIs who know Ward 1 very well. And that we have, I think, 4 or 5 different VI organizations across the city that should be working together, right, to mediate the dispute. So it's not about Reverend Judy, because she needs 2 more VIs. No, we need to be working together amongst those 4 to say who can best mediate the dispute in CHV right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris.
Thank you for joining us, Deputy Mayor. I wanted to acknowledge, though, about VIs. In my first term serving as ANC, there were at least 8 shootings that happened in my SMD right at 14th and B. And then in my second term, one of my friends was murdered on 14th and B. So it wasn't until the end of my second term that VIs were introduced around 14th and B. So I understand that you say that the VIs in Columbia Heights and LaDroit Park are working very hard, but I would encourage you to talk with Reverend Judy and the good work that she has done on 14th and V, because it has dramatically, and I'm knocking on wood, reduced the violent crime that has happened on 14th and V. And so with the risk of the budget being cut and funding being cut for VIs, that is, I'm scared, because it has been a blessing for my SMD to have VIs and the neighborhood overall. That is frequently overlooked because I represent a huge part of U Street and nightlife, and people come in. And so people think, oh, it's very transient. No, people live in U Street, longtime residents. So I am very nervous and very disheartened to hear that there is funding at risk for something incredibly important in my SMD. And my question to you on that is, you mentioned, and I quickly looked up to verify, that violent crime is at a very historic low. But do you think changing the policy of removing this funding and cutting funding for violence interrupters in Ward 1 will continue to reduce that violent crime? Because
I do, yes. As a Ward 1 resident, as the person who looks at this every day, as the person who's responsible for the cooperation, as the person who every morning, right, like is first thing I look at is crime. I absolutely do. And if I didn't, that the one who has asked those questions is me. Literally, I meet once a week with the mayor and with the chief. We met on Monday, the chief and I, with 2 of our VI heads of our VI organizations. We're that intimately involved in what is going on. When it comes to 14th and B or any other neighborhood, if that is what is the right tool to use, then one of the reasons we changed actually how we were doing VI rather than just one priority area. If there's a shooting at 14th and V and your area is Park View, you need to work that and help us to do that. But what we have worked on very carefully and what has actually helped us drive down violent crime 43% since 2023 is coordination, because we're down officers, because we can't just keep pumping more money. We don't have it, because the only way to get money is from you all, tax you all, come up with a way. That's the only place to come up with money. So to me, I'm saying, if I believed that we needed more VIs and that more money was going to is what would make the difference, I'd be the first one down with the mayor saying we need more money in this space, but that isn't it. In fact, we currently, with Cure and with Once, have the same 2 organizations contracting with both. So how can that be? Like, is that really the best use of resources? How are we, like, why is inner city and NARC, our contractors in the VI space, quite frankly, with overlap in neighborhoods too, because of how these dueling systems were set up? That means it's not the most efficient, but everyone has to work together. We do the shooting reviews every week, my office, where we meet with MPD, all of our VIs, all of our supervision agencies, and we go over every shooting to say what happened, who's on this person, how do we prevent retaliation? And so if I felt like more money was going to help us change that, I'd be squawking all day long. I can confidently say that with the funding that we have, we absolutely will continue to drive down both violent crime and shooting.
I I don't think it's a funding issue. It's removing the funding. And as a tax-paying resident, I've lived in DC for going on 13 years now. I will gladly pay more taxes to make sure that no one is murdered or hurt by violent crime. My next question is, it has to do with the sanctuary city. If what you're saying is that MPD isn't going to now, deputize, work with ICE, why not keep the statute in there in the first place? Like, why remove it?
Because if we're trying to address a certain issue, so it's great, and I'm just going to say it, to have these titles things that we did in 2020 to make certain signals, but now those have a different signal. If we want to accomplish what it says in the statute, let's have a narrowly tailored statute that actually does that. But saying Sanctuary Value Amendment Act, which now what DHS has done is put us on a list of self-identifying people who are not complying with enforcement because of that one piece of legislation, which doesn't even do what it says it does. But we're talking about people who are very simple. Okay, you say this one thing, they're not looking into what the statute actually says. So what we've said is prior to that statute, it actually, quite frankly, the same type of prohibitions or otherwise existed. So in 2020, renaming this thing to the Sanctuary Value Amendment Act, we understood at that time what that meant, but we're at this time. And what we need to do, and what the mayor said, is we're glad to work with council to address what it says in the Department of Corrections Act to do what that bill says. But we need to be smart because we're not going to risk our people. We're not going to risk funding or any of these things so that we can make a point. That won't help us. That's why we did it.
I
Quick
think we
follow-up.
need to be very careful in how we decide to grovel to a fascist regime.
Commissioner Holden.
Hi. With World Pride starting today, I was wondering
On
if
the
you,
17th
yeah,
of May.
I was wondering if you could elaborate on MPD's ask to close DuPont Circle.
Yes.
And then there's been some conflicting information about reopening the circle, or the
Yep.
circle still might be closed. I've talked with a lot of people. The gay community feels like that's an affront and an attack on the community.
So I can tell you that absolutely there was a follow-up letter from the chief in which she explained why we made the request to MPS to do that. But that's obviously Park Police area. And in the past couple of years, as people very well know, there was a lot of things that have nothing to do with the community, but everything to do with kids who rushed in and were fighting, a shooting in 2019, kids who tore down the fence. When they fenced off the fountain, they tore it down and there was $175,000 worth of damage done. Last year, kids started fighting, robbed a store. And what we did in order to support the Park Police was flood police the MPD resources there to help bring back order, so that, because honestly, fire EMS couldn't move through, all sorts of different things so that people could continue to enjoy Pride. This year, because of the breadth of World Pride, that there's things going on the RFK grounds. There's 17th Street closed. The parade route is longer and is not moving towards DuPont. So we have the resources there. It's moving towards downtown. There's the festival. We did not believe we would have the resources to do what we've done to stop the violence the past 3 years, which is backfill with MPD resources. So we said, Park Police, if you're not going to be able to police it, and we all, listen, we live in this city. That's not what they're going to do. They got like 2 people. You know what I mean? Then we would ask you to fence it. But listening to what people asked, the chief withdrew that request, and it becomes up to MPS. And what we said is, we'll support you in bringing order. But we know, because you all are down here, that right now kids are using every opportunity to like flood and engage in mayhem. U Street is very busy. Adams Morgan is very busy. The Golden Triangle is very busy. And then there's all these other things. So it was certainly by no means an attempt to be an affront, but really to make sure we're able to keep all of the World Pride events safe. And we just didn't think we would have the resources to kind of do what the past 4 years have required.
just from like a historical standpoint, or from like optics, it would be like closing off the Stonewall Inn or closing Castro Street in San Francisco while hosting the entire gay world in your city. So I just think it was a really wrong-headed decision to even request that.
Okay. Certainly we adjusted, and there was no attempt to be an affront or to offend, but instead to ensure a safe event all across the city. with the resources that we had, while also making sure our neighborhoods are safe too. But as you saw, when the public found out and there was communication with the chief, she went to MPS and withdrew the request.
Commissioner Sycamore, you can come off mute.
Hello, Deputy Mayor. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good, good. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I want to commend you and the mayor for making some of these really tough decisions with the budget. I largely support a lot of what the mayor has done, with some caveats, of course, but I really want to tip my hat to you. I think, with as far as like the term sanctuary cities and things of that nature, it's all semantics, and just as long as the meat and the crux of what our core values are as DC are still within the legislation and in statute, I don't think it really matters what we call it. I don't think it's kowtowing at all. So I want to thank you for that. Also, thank you for addressing the violence interrupters. I know that's a hot topic as well. Some people don't believe that it's incredibly effective. I actually just witnessed a murder, the murder that was on 9th and Florida last week, and it's quite traumatizing. And I want to thank you and MPD for their timeliness and making sure that these are still fully funded. I guess one of my big questions is safe passage, as far as they're concerned, at Garnett Patterson. Who has oversight over that? Because I have noticed some issues that I didn't know who to report to. Do you have any idea on that?
To me. You reported, so Jasmine's sitting here and her face is like, no, because that's our program. So if there are issues, you can either email me directly, you can email lindsay.apia@dc.gov, you can email, I think it's safepassage@dc.gov, you can email DMPSJ, any of those will get to us, and like in real time, we will address issues with our safe passage workers, because it's a work in progress, right? Like there's about 200 of them in 12 priority areas across the city. So if you're noticing things, please do actually report, because we do like pop-up site visits. We work with the actual supervisors, all of the schools, all of those things. And so we would appreciate, it's me.
Wonderful. And one more quick thing is specifically my SMD, which includes Cardozo High School, we've noticed an increase of break-ins with cars again. Can you really emphasize how important it is for people to report and how important these numbers are, so that we can make sure that there are resources towards these type of preventative efforts?
Yeah, I mean, it really is, because there's the only way we can adjust resources. And I see Commander Rooney, Connors, I'm so sorry. Guys, in MPD, there's like 2 Seans, 2 Johns, so this is Commander Connors. Rooney is 5D. Yeah, it's really important, because the way that we adjust resources, no matter what it is like we only can address what we know about, right? So when people are like, well, it's not worth it, you can go on TRU, or which is our telephone reporting unit for MPD, and report these things easily online through a form. So you don't have to go to 3D or the 3rd district or anything like that. And it helps us to really be able to address whether it's, do we need to put more foot feet? Do we need to have more cameras? What do we need to do there? And so when you don't report it, we don't know it, and we can't adjust resources appropriately. I will leave that to the commander to speak more about, but I think that is the right thing. It's really important, because we also want to, we are here to actually drive down crime and make communities safer, not to look like we're driving down crime. Because if that's not a real thing for me. I'm like, if there are real issues, we want to know about them so that we can address them.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much with that. On that segue, I think we'll
he's like,
close the question and answer. Thank you very much. Have a drink of water. You went through a lot of material there. Appreciate the visit.
Of course.
We'll move right into a quick visit from our new 3rd District Commander, Sean Connors, here to say hello. Maybe take 1 or 2 questions really quickly. I can give you maybe 2 minutes to make a statement if you want to.
No problem. I'll keep it real.
Yourself.
Just basically, I'm just going to I'm going to just introduce myself. So Sean Connors, I'm the new commander at 3D. Been here about 3 weeks. Recently, my most recent assignment was at the 4th district as the inspector there. Got about 16 years in the department. I've worked in narcotics and gun recoveries and violent crime suppression. I was the deputy director of the academy for a while. So good background, a lot of different aspects of the job, which I obviously hope to bring here to the third district. I know specific to this ANC, some things that we're jumping on immediately. What's going on for a while is 7th and T. We're continuing that effort. I looked at our arrest data today and the drug arrests, and we've made, I did want to throw out that number there. We've made in the third district 189 narcotics arrests this year. And when I looked at the map today, I can say about 80% of them were at 7th and T. So a lot of good work being done over at 7th and T. U Street, obviously that's a beast, but the multi-agency task force does a really good job with that. I remember when I was an officer and that didn't exist and how chaotic it was, and it's a lot more organized now, and that's pretty effective. And then LaDroit Park, which was spoken about too. And I will say, like, we have units assigned to LaDroit Park, and obviously being visible there is really important. But the work that we do in like other neighborhoods is just as important. It's preventing people from coming to LaDroit Park and committing those crimes. And so there's a lot of work that you don't see in CHV and other parts of the city, you know, when we're looking for certain people committing certain crimes. And, you know, a gun recovery in Ward 6 can stop a shooting in LaDroit Park. So a lot of work being done there. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, just quickly following up. Thank you so much for being here, Commander Connors. I think that, like you mentioned, there's been some good work at 7th and T, and obviously, you know, when the police tackle it in one area, the problem can move to other places. People are, you know, going to use and sell drugs, but, you know, definitely appreciate the efforts at enforcement. I think myself and my neighbors have noticed that there's more activity now on Florida, sort of, you know, north of 7th and T, but really on that Florida stretch right next to that bus stop, where basically that bus stop's pretty much unusable for members of the public who are trying to ride the bus. And I'm wondering how you guys are thinking about that situation and whether there can be similar enforcement there, because there's people pretty openly just using drugs, potentially selling drugs there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're definitely conscious about that. And so when our narcotics unit comes out, they do look in those areas as well. I don't know if you've noticed. So we went from like a fixed post at 7th and T, and now the unit that's assigned there is kind of roving a little more on the outskirts to kind of address some of that. The HIPS group that works in that area, Johnny, you know, we've worked with him and kind of talking about that a little bit too. I know he's got some barriers based off his brand and like where he can go. So we're kind of talking through that a little bit. And then DBH. And so there's definitely some coordination there, but we're definitely conscious about it and trying to like start moving our resources to those outskirts.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's great to hear that you're working with HIPS, and definitely, even if the problem is obviously still around with us as it has been for decades, I think it's a big win that it's no longer right next to the school, which had to put up like canvases to block the view of people overdosing from the children, which I think was pretty sad.
Yeah, and I will say, just from like narcotics enforcement, so going from like where just a blatant open air all day, every day, one corner, and kind of making the drug dealers work a little harder for it, that's also effective. And so it's definitely progress. Yep.
Further questions? Oh, Commissioner Sycamore, you have is it a new hand or an old hand up there?
Sorry, that's an old hand.
All
but
right.
now that I'm here, thank you so much, Commander, again, for your responsiveness to the recent shooting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else? Any questions for the commander? Final one. All right. Thank you for your visit.
Of course. Yep.
Happy to work with you.
Thank
Welcome
you.
aboard.
Appreciate it.
All right. We're moving into committee reports. This is going to be lightning round, guys. We have 1 hour for 49 pages of agenda. It's going to be amazing. 3 minutes per committee. I will strongly suggest you cut that in half to 90 seconds per committee. As best you can. 2 minutes will do. Commissioner Fay, take it away.
Okay, great. Relatively short update on the economic development. I'll work with Rise to get something out on the newsletter on this. The two big updates I want to share. Number one, great meeting on the Economic Development Committee this month or this past month with DemPed. They came and provided updates on the Reeve Center, on 1617 U Street, and on the Rita Bright Center. The short version of the update is that there's not much of an update. So all of them are still in process. The Reeve Center, DemPed is working closely with the developer to renegotiate some certain terms as the economic conditions have changed. We're going to stay in touch with them, but there's probably not another update for another 60 days, possibly 90. 1617, they are working behind the scenes on an RFP. That did create some community concern that they were working on an RFP behind the scenes, but part of what DemPed clarified is that it is a highly technical RFP with 3 city services, FEMS, MPD, and a fueling station. And so a lot of work is required on technical aspects. We were invited, and this will be the topic of the Economic Development Committee meeting in June, to draft additional resolution language to provide additional direction, clarity, input on the development standards. And so we're going to come up there. Rita Bright is still going through some rezoning efforts. So again, good updates to have, but not a lot of real kind of substantive changes. The only other thing I want to update on is that we had our first meeting of the U Street Business Roundtable, a new organization group that we launched on May 22nd. Great meeting, good outcome, nice discussion, and a great opportunity for folks to start meeting and working with one another. We've got a number of very specific tactical things that we're focusing on following up on. And so we'll reconvene that group hopefully here in the next month or so, but a lot of work going on behind the scenes. I will pause there.
Any questions on that material for Commissioner Fay? I will just say a huge thank you to Commissioner Fay for the U Street Business Roundtable. Great success. Also, Raisa Singh, our outreach consultant, Commissioner Barrio, and I did quite a bit of shoe leather work to recruit businesses on U Street to attend. We were able to reach about 100 of the roughly 160 businesses on the U Street corridor, which is about 60%. That's, I think, pretty amazing for just walking up and down, knocking on doors, sometimes getting yelled at. It was really a wonderful experience, made contact with a lot of new business owners who just don't usually come to these ANC meetings to tell them what we do. And that's incredibly important. So thank you guys all. Committee on Public Safety, Commissioner Barrio.
Hi, I can make this very brief. Not too many updates from the committee itself. So I'll just give a readout on the crime stats, which I think we've already briefly covered, but total crime is down. This is month over month. So total crime in ANC 1B is down from 128 incidents last month to 107 this month. Violent crime is roughly flat, 16 last month, 15 this month. There was one homicide, as we've discussed, at the 900 block of Berry Place. A 17-year-old had a gunshot wound and tragically was pronounced dead on the way to the hospital. That was on May 29th, I believe. Yeah, there were 6 assaults with deadly weapons. That's up 4 since last month. So we are seeing maybe a rise in, a lot of those assaults with deadly weapons. And it seems like there has been, to some extent, a shooting surge, though oftentimes these shootings are not fatal. Property crime is down from 112 last month to 92 this month. We had a community safety meeting recently about the shootings in LaDroit Park. And so that continues with there being basically, from what I can tell, a beef between the crew at LaDroit Park, the Columbia Heights Village, and other projects in other parts of the city. So we're definitely continuing to monitor that, but that problem has not gone away. Yeah, I'll just end by saying that year to date, total crime in ANC 1B is down from 573 incidents last year to date to 466 this year. And violent crime is down 69 to 55. So we are seeing a decline in crime compared to 2024, though obviously still high and potentially elevated above pre-pandemic levels.
Okay, thank you. Any questions quickly? Wonderful. Committee on Transportation, Parks, and Public Space, Commissioner Holden.
Hi, we'll have several items on the agenda later from our most recent May meeting. So I'll wait till those to elaborate on them. But just for our next meeting on the 11th, the topic will be the U Street Performance Parking plan or project, and a notice of intent we got recently where they're proposing to expand implementation to more blocks within the project area. So we'll get a project update from the project manager and then discuss the expansion. So if you're interested in performance parking, you should come.
Thank you very much. Committee on Zoning, Preservation and Development, Mr. Brandt, please.
Hello, everyone. We had a pretty light committee meeting this month. The one topic we discussed was the amendment to the Fair Housing Practices Act. It was a resolution in support of an amendment to the Fair Housing Practices Act that would ban junk fees. The committee supported that. I know that it's on this agenda and you'll talk about it later. And then just by way of some additional update on the V Street collapse, myself and a few others provided testimony at the council hearing recently. I wasn't actually able to stay the whole time because it went on very, very long. We don't have any updates. I know we talked about this with Councilmember Nadeau earlier. So I don't really have anything else to share in terms of like the after action report or anything, any type of meaningful communication from DOB. So that's the update.
Just quick question.
Yeah.
Our non-constituent but friend, Dave, who's been very on top of
Yes.
this issue, flagged maybe there's a role for the ANC to write a letter that sort of.
Yes, I would be.
Yeah.
I'm very much in support of that at this point, considering that it's been 6 months since the collapse and we still have no meaningful communication from them about it.
Yeah.
So
Great. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think we support that 100%.
Thank you very much. Committee on Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Regulations, Commissioner Henry.
Good evening. To also keep it brief, we have a couple items for new business for several new license applications that we'll get to later. There's a couple of ongoing protests we have for some bar extending its hours to 6 a.m. That we are actively protesting. It's inside the moratorium zone. Then kind of larger thematically thinking thematically about ABCR, I think a lot of our committee members are kind of aligned in the sense of we want to try and make sure that there is a existing settlement agreement on file for establishments and to try and make motions to create them where there aren't, as well as trying to track down existing ones. So that's kind of something we hope to kind of continue to work on as the year goes about, as there's numerous bars and restaurants on U Street. But I think finding settlement agreements and creating them seems to be one of our best tactics. So hopefully we will keep doing that, and more for the new business later.
Thank you so very much. Committee on Community Engagement, Commissioner Sycamore, did you want to chime in with anything quickly? Okay.
Yes. Hi. So we didn't have a meeting this past week, and I do want to send my sincerest apologies to the committee, fellow commissioners, the community, and constituents of my absence over the past 6 weeks. It's been a really rough past 6 weeks for me personally, between federal job cuts and health scares, and there's been a lot going on my side personally. So, but I will be resuming everything next week. So I'm catching up on emails and sending things out. We will be having our next meeting on June 17th at 6 p.m. So again, I apologize, but we will be getting back on track here very soon. Thank you so much.
Appreciated. Thank you. Commissioner announcements, Commissioner Vice Chair Harris, I believe you have.
Hugs, Jamie, hugs.
So, Commissioner Sycamore, you've received a hug from Commissioner Lemon Strauss. Just want to note that that'll be in the minutes. Thank you.
I will take hugs.
Oh, the hug was seconded. Vice Chair Harris, go ahead.
I just have a brief announcement. I wanted to let the community know, and you may have, I don't think anyone currently on the commission knows him, but a former ANC 1B Commissioner, Rob Hudson, suddenly passed away last month. He worked on a lot of the large developments that happened in ANC 1B, most notably Grimkey. And I know he had a hand in our bylaws and our SOPs. So I just wanted to, again, let the community know and keep his husband and family in your thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. I'm incredibly grateful to you for for staying in touch, and you've always been sort of the link to previous generations, the resolution on Commissioner Turner. Seriously, it's very important, so we don't lose touch with them and the institutional knowledge. I appreciate that. Any further commissioner announcements? Any community announcements? All right, we'll move into administrative section. Oh, 50 minutes left to go. We're moving along at quite a clip. Let's jinx that. Any executive officers reports? Nothing, nothing? Okay, beautiful. Next item is a budget amendment to authorize nominal refreshments at hybrid commission meetings. Well, if you've eaten the pizza today, you can only vote yes on this motion. I only belatedly learned that we are allowed by statute to spend $100 and not one penny more on refreshments for these meetings. I decided that we should start doing that. We do need to include a line item in the budget so that we can keep doing so. So I will move to amend our budget for this year to cover the expenses of the previous two hybrid meetings and the one that we're planning for the fall. So that would be $300 in total. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hands.
Aye.
We have 8 yeas. All those opposed, raise your hands. All those abstaining, 1 abstention has been noted. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item, authorization of payment for AV services in support of hybrid meetings. This is just a technicality. We have a new AV firm who's providing the hybrid meeting support and the smart camera, the Zoom integration, the audio, everything we're doing here now. We thought that the Office of ANCs could pay the AV firm directly. It turns out they cannot, so we must pay the AV firm directly. OANC will reimburse us fully for those payments. It's a bit silly, but it's the technicality we have. So I will move to authorize a payment of $4,150 to cover our previous 2 hybrid meetings, which of course will be reimbursed in full immediately. Any questions, any discussion? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hands, please.
Aye.
And we have 9 in favor. Thank you very much. The motion passes. Next item, authorization of service agreement and payment for the production of, wait for it, Shakespeare in the Park in Meridian Hill, Malcolm X Park. This brings me intense joy as the commissioner for 1B06, which includes Meridian Hill, Malcolm X Park. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Fay, who instigated this entire thing, to give us a quick rundown.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to take too much time. We've been trying hard because this was not discussed at the COW, the committee of the whole meeting last week. So we've tried to over communicate in the last 24 hours or so. It started with an experience at National Harbor with this same performing ensemble, which is produced by the Prince George's County Department of Parks and Recreation. They do a Shakespeare in the Park event each year. And last year, my husband and I went, had a fantastic time, observed how absolutely enthralled the audience was, how many kids there were, the diversity of the group. And we said, how many times do you get to go to a free Shakespeare experience and bring all your kids and have a great time and meet your neighbors and enjoy? And this group does a really good job. They do a nice accessible performance. They make it a lot of fun. It is in fact true to Shakespeare. I did not learn iambic pentameter for the purposes of this resolution, but it will be there in spirit. We have been meeting back and forth with the Department of Parks and Rec for Prince George's. We are working through a lot of details, but just on Tuesday night, we were able to align their performance schedule with availability at Meridian Hill, Malcolm X and the National Park Service. Wednesday, June 25th is what we're looking at. The very brief breakdown is that the total cost for the performance is going to be about $4,200. They are as excited about this as we are, and so they are only going to charge us for the variable expenses associated with the event. We are not paying for costumes. We're not paying for production. We're not paying for sets. We are simply paying for the time that it takes to kind of pay the actors and to move everything over. So it's actually a pretty good deal. There are some additional elements that are still getting sorted out relative to insurance coverages. Of course, we are covered for the liability insurance through the city, but there are some other things that we need to do related to their folks moving out of Maryland and to the district. And there are some additional incidentals. So we are very optimistic that this will be a $5,000 to $6,000 event, but we have put a 25% kind of contingency on top of it. And so we are asking for budget authorization of $7,500. I can read the resolution if you'd like, but I will just clarify to maybe the public as well as our commissioners that We put a lot of energy into a resolution because back and forth with OANC today, it was very important that this was not purely entertainment, but that it was focused on education and it was focused on community development. And we all feel that we have accomplished those goals sufficiently. So with that said, I would like to move for authorization for a Shakespeare in the Park event to engage the Prince George's County Department of Parks and Recreation to do a performance in June of 2025, just in case that date has to move for rain, with a not to exceed amount of $7,500. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I would support.
Oh, sorry, discussion.
I would support as long as we don't have a cow meeting on that night as well.
And
The
they
meeting will
can't
be rescheduled.
They cannot perform the Tempest.
It is the comedy fair.
Oh,
It is. So that dovetails nicely. It just is the meeting. That's the whole performance. Question.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is like a wonderful thing that you've done.
It was a team effort.
Team
We
effort.
can't hear you, Commissioner Strauss. Lemon Strauss, we can't hear you.
For sure, team effort. My experience though, Matt, is that when you're involved, you're driving a lot of what the team is doing, just like in general with my experience with you. So anyway, this is a great thing. My only thing is it's coming up pretty quickly.
Yes.
So I personally would be in favor if we put some additional money into, I guess I'd, defer to our talented folks, but do we feel good about our ability to get the word out, bring people in? And I personally would be in favor of putting some money into helping to support that as well, if to the extent that we can.
The $7,500, the $7,500 budget provides a nice promotional budget if needed.
Great.
And then it also provides us for a fair amount of wiggle room on the expenses of the insurances based upon what we find. So we've actually really pressure tested this and feel like 7,500 gives us the leeway that we would need.
Yeah.
And then of course we're hoping to come in under budget because of the projections we've done.
Great.
And
I
I
do.
think,
I'm sorry. Thank you. I would say I'm never a big fan of Shakespeare in the Park, but I got to say the fact that we're spending money down at 1B finally, I love, and also that's going to get the community together. So it's a great thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I will just say one thing really quickly, which is it costs so much money to go to these events when you buy the ticket someplace, and it just brings me in tremendous joy to be able to have a bunch of folks walk out of their house, bring their kids, and have this experience.
Love it.
And I watched little kids last year kind of watch these faces up on the stage and think, gosh, I could be that. Go ahead.
It's great.
I think just from a marketing perspective, we can absolutely market this very, very easily. Like I think Commissioner Lemon Strauss, like I hear you, but I think this is like such an easy thing that we can
Right. Yeah,
easily contact. I know of one influencer who would happily promote this,
And-
who has 100,000 followers. So I think
the only other
we're,
things I
we'll be
would
good.
say, and it's a great point, Vice Chair, is that we just, because of hosting events there in the park before, we make sure EMS is aware, the cops, all that good stuff. I can help out with that. I have the information. So other events I've done before it became 1B06. So let me know.
That'd be great.
Yep.
I do have one question.
Yep.
Do we know, are we actually legally allowed to be doing this since it is NPS property?
Yes, they are thoroughly aware. We're in the middle
Okay.
of the permit application process now. So nothing is, no ink is drying on contracts just yet, but it's a long process with them and we're furnishing all the details. So yes, and they of course will also be in touch with the park police as is their SOP for large events.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any further questions, points of debate? All right. All those in favor of authorizing the amount described on your agenda, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you. 9 in favor. The motion passes unanimously. Absolutely overjoyed. Thank you very much. I also want to just do a quick shout out, not only Commissioner Fay, but also the LaDroit Park Civic Association, Washington Parks and People, and of course, PG County Department of Parks and Rec are our partners on this and all playing very important roles. So it wouldn't be possible without them. Final item here on the agenda, midterm committee surveys. Just a heads up, Karen Lee, our administrative consultant, is about to reach out to all the committee chairs to do a midterm survey of your members. The survey will be tailored to each committee. It'll take a different form depending on the chair, the membership, the general vibe, whatever is important to you. That'll be happening in the next month or so. She's going on a well-deserved trip, so most of it will take place after that. But if you want to start brainstorming some things that you'd like to ask your committee members about, that's a good thing to do right now. Final thing I will note, of course, as I always do, is that the newsletter will be going out at the end of the weekend or early next week. So any event announcements, unfortunately, it's too soon, I think, for us to announce Shakespeare in the Park until it's finalized. But anything else happening in the neighborhood, anyone in the audience, certainly welcome to put a plug in there. Any new business openings, we love to feature those. Send them to the office email 1b@anc.dc.gov ASAP, please. Anything else administratively? Fantastic. New business. All righty. We've got 40 minutes to cover this stuff. Let's do the best we can. First resolution up, and we're going to project these on the screen as best we're able. They're all, except for one, in the PDF packet, which is linked in the chat. First resolution is supporting the Fair Housing Practices Amendment Act. Christian Brandt, chair of the ZPD committee, has had to excuse himself. This is actually my resolution submitted to the committee, so I'll speak about it very briefly. There is a bill in the DC Council introduced by Council Member Charles Allen, which seeks to prohibit the billing of fees for utilities in common spaces of large residential buildings, or any residential building, in fact. This is a new form of junk fee that housing providers in DC have been introducing sneakily. I myself, I must admit, am the subject of one of these fees. I'm paying $70 every month, as are all of the hundreds of people living in my building, just to pay for the Wi-Fi in the lobby of the building. $70 a month times 200 apartments is an exorbitant and absurd amount of money to pay for one Wi-Fi router in the lobby.
But you do have a pool on your roof.
I do have a pool. You know what, Commissioner Kensick? There is no Wi-Fi at the pool. So why, if we're paying a quarter,
Bastards.
it's literally $250,000 a year we're giving them for the Wi-Fi in common spaces, and it does not work at the pool. We laugh a bit, but that's a ton of money. It's clearly a junk fee. I'm mystified why OAG hasn't pursued this as a junk fee. In fact, the final clause in this resolution requests that OAG investigate it as a junk fee and supports the bill in council to make this practice illegal. I think we're going to have to dispense with the reading of any, even the operative clauses of resolutions today for speed. But if there are any questions about the specifics, happy to take them. I did. Yes. Then just to handle it formally, I move that we adopt this resolution in support of the Fair Housing Practices Amendment Act of 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any debate, questions, discussion?
I would just hope that the fellow commissioners do vote in favor of this. Would be a non-brainer not to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the resolution, raise your hands.
Aye.
Thank you. 9 in favor. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Deeply appreciated. Next one from the Transportation Committee, resolution in support of Council Bill 26-0057, the Motor Vehicle Insurance Modernization Act. Commissioner Holden.
Hi, so this is a resolution that came out of the Transportation Committee, specifically from one of our Transportation Committee members, Jay Swiderski. And this is in support of an amendment act, a council bill that has been introduced 3 times in the last 4 council sessions, but hasn't passed yet. And basically what it would do, the minimum required coverage for liability insurance has not been raised since 1986. The drivers are required to carry. It's at $25,000, which would be the equivalent of about 10, or it would have been adjusted for inflation, it would be about $10,000 in 1986, but if it had been raised, it would be more like $60,000. And cars are more expensive and faster and bigger and cause more damage, especially to pedestrians and cyclists, people outside of vehicles. And so if the liability insurance doesn't cover all of their medical care, then it goes on to the injured party. So this is just asking to raise this. Virginia has recently passed a similar bill. I believe Maryland is considering it. And then something just as some context, studies have been done in jurisdictions where they have raised it, and they saw that insurance rates did not raise more than they would have like normally. So the rate of insurance increase premiums to customers maintained. So this is just asking that the Committee on Business and Economic Development pass this bill, the Transportation Committee review it and provide comments, and then hopefully Council, consider and pass the bill.
Is there a second to adopting the resolution? Okay. Questions? I'll lead off. Just want to be clear. There's no specification of what the new minimum required coverage should be, or that it be indexed to inflation or anything. We're leaving that the technicalities to council. I suppose you didn't have an opinion on.
I believe that's something that's like actually in the bill. Where just the purpose of the resolution is just to show that there's support for the bill as it is written.
Wonderful. Further questions? Yep.
Yeah, I was on that call that evening. I think that a couple of the committee members dissented on that. I believe one of them, his name is Gene. This is something
Gene's not a committee member, just as clarification. That was a member of the public.
Whether she's not, she was still on the audience and she still made the comment. So let's just say that. Okay, thanks. So with that said, we go back from 1980s. There's a lot of things we can go back for this and that, whatever. As her point, which I thought was well taken, that why is DC always having to hit the blunt for Virginia and Maryland drivers? I mean, why is it something that we're taking on? Secondly, why are we coming up with something 20, 30, 40 years later? I mean, should we go through everything that we went back from the 1980s that we're still on? Lastly, I think that the cars in general, I think that we've already get burdened enough with taxes and everything else that we pay. And somehow the city has become like anti-car, and whatever we can do to keep just adding and adding and adding and not even have full numbers, but we're going to go ahead and support it. I just think it's quite silly. But that's fair for the committee's point and how they feel. But I think that it's really absurd. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fay.
Commissioner Holden, I think the concern that I have, and I think you've already addressed it, is that by raising the coverage amounts, it would increase the cost to car owners, car drivers. And what you're saying is that the research has shown that by providing the appropriate level of coverage for modern day, it does not, in fact, create a real financial burden on the drivers and car owners.
Yeah, the studies, as I understand them or that I've seen, is that there's a year-over-year increase in insurance premiums. I mean, I think mine just went up quite significantly this year, actually. But in jurisdictions where, like Virginia did pass this, and the rate of increase did not change. It increased, but not like way more because the coverage increased.
But the question directed was the fact that we have studies and proof of this, but there is none. There is no studies or proof. You're just going off based off of Virginia, and you're saying that yearly insurance raises for everyone. I haven't had my insurance raised in a while, so I'm curious to see. Maybe, and we live, I think, a street apart.
I mean, I sent around a study this afternoon or like sometime today that showed it was based off of real information.
Yeah, that wasn't really a study, but okay, thank you.
Further questions, points of debate?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm not completely convinced on this. I'm really not. I'm afraid that this is the fact that Commissioner Holden said that we are just kind of blanketly supporting this bill without actually knowing the details on this and not really able to predict what the insurance companies are going to do. I'm really afraid that this is going to impact some disproportionately seniors and people who are of a lower income bracket. I'm not fully convinced on this, and I'm not going to support this until I see more information on this.
Last thing I'll say is it's a great point, Commissioner Sycamore. One of my comments that evening, as I recall, was that the people that are making lower income in terms of 25, 35, 45, they're going to now take this brunt as well when they're already trying to make ends meet. So once again, it just seems like a very heinous thing to do, just without having the clear details and having facts to actually back it up. It just seems a little wackadoo, to be honest. Thank you.
Any final comments? Thank you very much.
I'll just say that the 6 people, we had 6 yeas, 1 nay, and 3 abstentions, just to state how the committee felt, and that low income people walk around and get hit by cars too and are unable to pay the hospital bills that are caused by getting hit by a car. So if there's increased insurance coverage, then they're covered from that and can recover without having to think about the finances of going to the hospital.
Well, I don't think this is going to actually solve anything. That's also a health insurance issue, which is already, we're not going to be solving insurance issues with this resolution. And I don't think the council will solve any insurance issues with this. This is also a healthcare issue, not just a car insurance issue.
It's for the liability coverage that pays for medical expenses once you're hit by a car that's covered under.
But you also aware that
vehicle insurance.
DC does cover people too for things that are marked. So people making under a certain level of $40,000, they actually will be covered by DC Medicaid. So I don't again understand the point, but okay, continue.
There are two questions in the community on Zoom, and also just a FYI to everyone here, you're always welcome to raise your hand anytime we're taking questions or points of debate. And at all points, the microphone belongs to all of you. Bruce, you can go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Hey, thanks so much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. So I was actually just one of about 200 co-signers asking Councilmember McDuffie to table this bill, including there were folks, signers included DC Families for Safe Streets, the Washington Area Bicyclists Association, and several others. Just a few points I wanted to make about this. One, in the last 40 years, I'm sure everybody's premiums have gone up, but the value you get for that has not, because the minimums have not been raised along with your premium. So what covered, $25,000 in 1986 would now equal $76,000, and you just don't get that value straight up. The second point that is worth tabling is that traffic violence impacts low-income, majority Black and brown neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. disproportionately. So, in fact, these are often the communities that are most at risk here. And anybody who's had the misfortune to spend any amount of time in the ER would probably tell you that $25,000 doesn't get you very far. And so those are just two of the points I wanted to address. Oh, the other is regarding premiums. And that study does show that states across the union that have raised their insurance coverage, actually premiums are raised at a lower rate than those states who have not increased their insurance. So that's why our neighbor Virginia, which didn't even require you to carry motor vehicle insurance up until this year, recently passed $50,000 mandatory minimum insurance, which is what this bill that is before council also proposes. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fryer. Appreciate that. Christopher Nace, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Christopher Nace. I'm actually a member of the past president of the Trial Lawyers Association of Washington, D.C. I've had the opportunity to represent victims of accidents. And what I've learned over the years is that those who are the most vulnerable suffer the most from uninsured or underinsured drivers. The scenario, and this is why we think this is important to support and move. And by the way, the bill does call to move the limits from 2,550 to 5,100. That is what's in the bill. What happens is if you're in a car, if you're in a wreck now, and by the way, we have so many people in the district who don't have cars, who are using scooters, bikes, et cetera. They don't have their own underinsured coverage. So they only have to rely on what the wrongdoer has when they're injured. And what happens is if you say you've gotten hit or you hit your head, right away, that cost of a CT scan, an ER visit, that's going to wipe out $25,000. Now, if you miss work for 3, 4, 5 days, you're out of luck. And unfortunately, I think one of the things that we learned during the COVID pandemic was how many of our fellow neighbors and citizens really do live paycheck to paycheck. So the reason for the increase is right now, a victim, somebody who's done nothing wrong and is injured through no fault of their own, they are not able to get back to where they were before that injury, before they were hit, before there was some accident. We talk about the increase of the cost of $25,086. The actual medical care increase, the increase in healthcare costs, this bill would really need to be close to $125,000 if it were to keep up with the cost of healthcare. So we think this bill really does protect the most vulnerable. And again, in a city where so many people see, if you have your own car, you might have underinsured coverage. You might not be left holding the bag for a wrongdoer because you may have your own coverage you can fall back on. But fewer and fewer citizens, those who don't have cars, don't have that luxury. So, and the last point I'll make on it is, when somebody does not have sufficient coverage, and if somebody doesn't have health coverage, it's the taxpayer who bears the burden of that. It's the taxpayer through the hospitals that has to bear the burden of any medical care that those people need. So this bill helps to put the responsibility back on the wrongdoer, as opposed to the vulnerable, innocent person and the taxpayers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any further comments, questions? All right, happy to move into voting on this. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please raise your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands.
Nay.
By a vote of 7 to 2, the resolution is adopted. Thank you very much. Next resolution, do you want to take it?
Yeah, so this hopefully is a quicker one. This was at the committee also, a resolution in support of capital bike share operations. Miguel suggested, or Chair Trinidadi DeRomo suggested this, and I thought it was a really good idea. Basically, capital bike share has become, over the last 15 years, an essential mode of transportation in the district, and 1B and the surrounding ANCs are home to some of the busiest stations in the whole system, not just in DC, but Maryland, DC, and Virginia. And we're concerned with budget cuts that bike share doesn't seem as flashy, so maybe could be reduced in support. And so this was actually an ask not for like expansion or capital project or like new stations, but just making sure the existing stations are in good repair, bikes are available, stations are working, and that the bike fleet is balanced in a way that it's a usable system for everyone. Because if the station is empty and you're trying to go somewhere, you can't go anywhere. If you're coming back and the station is full, you have to go find another station. So as the station ridership has increased month over month for a long time now. So as it continues to be used more and more, we just want to make sure that it is operational. Anything you want to add?
Nope, very happy. Thank you for taking it up.
And this passed unanimously at the committee.
Excellent. And just to be clear, I don't think you clarified, this is in support of the operations budget, which is dependent on council. Bike share has a separate capital budget, which they feel generally pretty stable about. But this covers lots of things like the rebalancing during the day, which I think is often a gripe. They just don't have enough teams to keep the bikes moving around in accordance with demand. Is there a second to the resolution?
Second.
Thank you very much.
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we know more about how the district works with Lyft to operate these stations, and like you said, why the rebalancing doesn't happen more. Sounds like they don't have enough teams, like you were saying, but I am just curious because I know that this comes up a lot and it is just sort of a persistent issue. Like, what would it take to actually rebalance the bikes if we know that? More people biking up the hill, which I do sometimes, but yeah, bike angels.
Do you want to go ahead?
They have. Me either. So they have certain service level agreements, but I do think it is about the like staff. I think it's staffing, and they might rebalance something by like bringing some bikes to one station in a neighborhood, and then the theory is then the bikes then redistribute themselves as people ride them. But I think as we've kind of found that doesn't always shake out because there are certain stations that are very popular compared to others. So it kind of naturally unbalances itself. So it needs some help to rebalance. I think as we're looking for transportation committee topics, we could maybe ask someone from the bike share team or the bike team to talk about that thing instead of just like new bike plans. We can talk about how like biking works in the city. So
100%. I learned something interesting actually from the bike share team at DDOT, which is that the rebalancing teams, there are few of them. And so what they generally do is pick up a bunch of bikes from around the city and drop them all off at one station. That's their rebalancing. If they had more people and more vans, they could, not just make one stop. You'll often notice in Capital Bike Share, there's like one station with full dock and all around it's all zeros.
Yeah.
That's just like what they can manage. So, hopefully in the future with increased operations budgets, they can hire more people and distribute better. It's just what they can do for now. Anything further?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
this is a great idea. I love this. I'm a daily Capital Bike Share user, so I love this idea.
Well,
Is there
I'm an
any way we
hourly
can...
Capital Bike Share user. How about that?
Ooh. Is there
All
any
right,
way
all
we
those
can
in-
ask for more e-bikes? I would love that.
Oh, no kidding.
They've increased the fleet of e-bikes.
They have increased the fleet. Nobody wants to work anymore. All right, all those in favor of adopting the resolution, hands up, please.
Aye.
Thank you. 9 in favor, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Thank you very much. Public safety resolution calling on congressional hearing for confirmation of the interim U.S. Attorney for D.C., Commissioner Barrio.
Yeah, this is similar to the resolution that was passed at our last meeting. As many of you may know, interim U.S. Attorney Ed Martin was dismissed by President Trump, and Trump now appointed Janine Pirro to fill in as our new interim U.S. Attorney. This resolution is basically just calling for a confirmation hearing in order to give DC representatives a voice in this process, to give senators and representatives a voice in this process, because this is such a critical position for the district. The U.S. Attorney decides who gets prosecuted for serious crimes, and that has a big impact on public safety in the district. So, this is just reiterating that and basically pointing out that we've had serious concerns with both Matthew Graves, the U.S. Attorney under Biden, as well as Ed Martin. There's been serious concerns with both of them. And so this deserves more scrutiny. And I think it's important for district residents to stand up and say we should have a voice in this process, that every other city around the country and state gets to have a voice in who is their chief prosecutor.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions, points of debate? Yep.
The quick question is that as I read it, it looked like it was almost identical to the previous one that we had voted on. Were there any major changes that you made?
I mean, I removed the specific concerns about Ed Martin that had been popping up, but other than that, no. I mean, it's basically identical, just pointing out that, we've had these concerns. This is important for the district, and reiterating that our representatives and shadow representatives should be able to participate.
Do you have direct concerns with Pirro?
I mean, personally, I would like to see more information about her. I know that I reached out to the U.S. Attorney's office in order to find out whether she'd be doing community events. And so I would like to go to those community events and ask her more questions.
Understood.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Seeing nothing on Zoom, all those in favor of adopting the resolution, please raise your hands.
Aye.
All those opposed, raise your hands. Any wishing to note abstentions, please raise your hands. Two abstentions have been noted for the minutes, please. The motion is agreed to. The resolution is adopted. Thank you very much. Are you ready for that one now? Okay. Next one is mine.
Question, was that seconded?
Ish.
Was it last one seconded?
I didn't call for a second. but
Oh,
I just
okay. Got it.
I blew right by it.
All right, yeah, we're good. Okay.
I'll do penance later. Next one is a resolution advocating, supporting, excuse me, the maintenance of or increase in funding levels for violence interruption programs in Ward 1. This one is not in your packet. I'm sorry. I wrote it this afternoon. It was mostly in response to the community event that Commissioner Fay referred to that Ledroit Park hosted a couple nights ago. The resolution is agnostic as to the mechanisms. As you heard a couple times earlier tonight from our guest speakers, the Attorney General's Cure the Streets program is being reconfigured or going away. There are changes to the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. My position is that experts, both in council and in the executive, can sort of hash out what is the best form for violence interruption to take, what's the best way to manage it administratively. For us, what's important here in Ward 1 on the ground is that the overall investment of the district in violence interruption programming be maintained or expanded. It's a lot to hope that things be expanded this year, but at least maintained at their current levels is our hope. So I'll just read the resolved clause here. This commission calls upon the council to maintain at current levels or increase in value the district's total investment in violence interruption programs in Ward 1. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Questions, debate?
Yep. This did come a little bit out of the conversation that we had in Ledroit Park at a community safety event on Tuesday night. The council member was there, a member of ONES was there, Reverend Judy, whose name you've heard many times tonight, was there. We had a very good conversation about efforts underway to curb gun violence in not just our neighborhood, but in neighborhoods across the District of Columbia. And one of the things that we spent a fair amount of time talking about was the importance of increasing the number of the diversity of tools that we have in our belts to be able to deal with violence. And appreciating that as much as the MPD is working very, very hard for all of us, they are neither the only solution, nor can they be the only solution. And so I look at this in light of Deputy Mayor Apia's comments and her suggestion that there are opportunities for efficiency. I agree that there are opportunities for efficiency. I will be voting in favor of this tonight to send the signal that I think we need to be supporting more tools in our tool belt, and would encourage the council to look at additional resources for violence interruption, but also just additional resources for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of the resolution, please.
I have a quick question. Question.
Please.
Sorry. Do we have any sort of metrics or anything about the effectiveness of violence interrupters? Because I have not seen those. Yeah. Or we just kind of.
There's actually Cure the Streets has a whole page on their website with data behind that. The ONES office is frequently it's understaffed and it is not at its full potential. So they have not released any data on this. I'm sure it's coming, but I think we can all see, at least in 1B in our neighborhoods, different pockets where violence interrupters, which have increased over the last 2 years in 1B, having a direct effect in reducing a lot of the violent crime that is happening. So I will absolutely be supporting this and, very much tapping into an increase of funding. I hear the efficiency side, but right now they don't even have enough staff to even treat the VIs in a well-employed way. So I think increased funding, if we really care about safety, then that is a tool to do that. And why wouldn't we at the baseline maintain it, if not increase it?
Well, I just don't see any proof or evidence that it's effective or not effective. That's my biggest concern. I'm looking at the thing right now. Okay.
Quickly.
Yeah. So Commissioner Sycamore, I will say that it has taken me a year at least to warm up to the concept of violence interruption, and it took a lot of learning a lot about what they did and how they did it and meeting the violence interrupters. And I am also still looking for data and statistics, but I really want to make sure that we are encouraging and supporting a broad range of solutions in our communities. And I think that this is one that will bear fruit.
Thank you very much. Final comments? Okay. All those in favor of the resolution, please. Oops. Wait. There we go. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hands. I count 8. All those opposed, please raise your hands. All those wishing to note an abstention.
Abstain.
Thank you by a vote of 8 to 0 to 1. The resolution is adopted. Thank you very much. Using my discretion as chair, I'm going to reorder the agenda slightly so we can get to the ABCR matters. I think they're just many of them have tight deadlines. Commissioner Hanrahan, if you would walk us through K through N on the agenda, please.
Yes. So we have a couple of new licenses that are coming into U Street area. The first one is for is ABRA license number 132050 for a Kathmandu tapas and cocktails at 1342 U Street Northwest. It is a new license restaurant. The occupancy seating of 48. The information specific of their hours is listed in the agenda. You can click on the OneDrive link. The committee voted with votes of 5 yays and 1 nay to support a settlement agreement with the establishment. So we prepared a draft. We have a settlement agreement, and I would also just want to say the owner, I don't know if they are their establishment owner, I don't know if they are on the call, but they've been really nice and trying to I would like to motion to support the settlement agreement with the business.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
All those in favor, please raise your hands.
Yeah, that looks like no. 9 for 9. Jamie?
All those opposed, please raise your hands.
Sorry, it's an aye.
Thank you. All right. By a vote of 9 to 0, the settlement agreement is agreed to. Lifted, please. Oh, sorry.
Yes. So actually, I'm going to flip around. We'll go to N right now. So Half Smoke did close, but it was testimony read about from a neighbor lives adjacent in the Detroit community regarding some of their garbage practices, specifically oil disposals, that led the committee to recommend a motion to protest this license. We confirm with ABCA that for 21 days, unless they're closed for 21 days, they're to protest. So I would like to move that the ANC protest Half Smoke 651 Florida Avenue Northwest on the grounds of peace, order, and quiet, specifically on noting to their garbage disposal.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hands.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any wishing to mark an abstention? By a vote of 8 to 1, the protest is agreed to. Next.
I'm going to do Chicha since it's in my
ahead.
SMD. This is an establishment seeking a substantial change. They're looking to go to 6 a.m. I know there have been some issues that community members in my SMD have flagged, specifically on the noise. And then I see here that there is support from the committee to protest. So I move that the full ANC protest the substantial change at Chicha Lounge at 1214 U Street Northwest on peace, order, and quiet and all applicable grounds, particularly noise.
Is there a second?
There is a second. Real quickly, I agree with you so much, Vice Chair. Just we're on staff with police. We 3 to 6 is just ridiculous. So I'm in favor as well.
Thank you. Anything further? All those in favor, please raise
I have a
your
quick
hands.
question. Sorry. Is there anything specifically that that has triggered this? I mean, 6 o'clock is ridiculous, but I'm just wondering if there's any specifics.
Yeah, Commissioner, we had on the 1600 block, we used to have a Chichi Lounge. It has a lot of loitering that goes on. There's always been the mess around. They haven't been really holding their upkeep here on the U Street area. And we already have enough concerns with the violence and public safety in the area. So it really is a no-brainer to make sure we're not keeping a business open that's hovering and having people loitering on the outside when we can't even contain right now what's happening between 12 and 3 a.m. So I think 3 to 6 should be out of the question.
Thank you.
Anything further? No. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hands.
Aye.
I count 9. Thank you very much.
Okay. And
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, are we moving?
Yes, the motion is passed. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Sorry. This is not on the agenda. We did talk about it at our cow and it came in today. But I have a settlement agreement, a drafted settlement agreement with 1351. It's in my SMD. It's right above U Street Wine and Beer. It's a brand new establishment. And they have, we've gone through mediation, all of that. So they have agreed, or they will be agreeing to the settlement agreement. So I move that the full ANC support a settlement agreement for 1351 at 1351 U Street Northwest for a new license.
Second, so thank you. There's a second. Any questions, comments?
Yes, I took a tour. Yes, I took a tour of the venue. It is not even in construction yet, and it only has an occupancy of 80 people. So it's very small.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise. Sorry, yes, go ahead.
We obviously haven't had a chance to review the settlement agreement. Are you satisfied with it? Do you think it's going to meet the needs of your SMD?
Yes.
Okay.
There's also a comment from Mr. Chauvin.
Yep, Frank Chauvin are you speaking on this settlement agreement?
Well, I will actually wait till the vote, but I would like to call a point of order, though I'm not a member of the commission. No public questions have been taken throughout any of this discussion on any of these licenses.
No public question has been raised.
I have had my hand up through the last 3 votes, and nobody has raised, called on me. And I have a question from 2 votes removed with respect to the Chicha Lounge. And just let me know when I can make a comment on that, please.
You get 30 seconds.
I think the rules are 2 minutes. I'm not sure why they're changing this evening.
You're using your 30 seconds right now.
Yeah, point of question.
Yeah. No public comments have been called during any of these votes, and this is a public forum for people to be able to make comments. And so I call the decorum of treatment of the public on this question.
All right, we'll take that under advisement. Thank you very much. The motion has passed. Is the next license ready to be discussed?
Yes. Thank you. And please, we'd like to dive into the details of the licenses at the committee meetings, and we will be meeting, I believe, on June 18th, the next meeting. The next item is for a medical marijuana retailer new license on 2220 14th Street Northwest. There was a community concern regarding adjacent nearby daycare, as well as just community concerns regarding making sure that there is a settlement agreement in place. And so the committee recommended that the ANC protest on the grounds of peace, order, and quiet for to protest the license for lifted.
Is there a second to the motion to protest? The representatives of the business are also on the line. Yeah.
Something. So I know that there is an issue because this is close to a daycare. However, there's no regulations about that, and that's not something that the ANC can handle. I will also note that only the ANC can protest medical marijuana retailers. So that is, no one else can protest this. And I get it. That's like super frustrating, but we're trying to work in the regulations that we have. We don't have the power to change any of the regulations.
And to add to that, that's in my SMD. It's right next to our liquor store, and there's other things around the area. I don't see any harm in this, but yeah.
Okay, Karen, there's a question in the chat. If you could enable, in the meantime, just to be clear, the protesting on the grounds of peace, order.
Peace, order, and quiet. Yes.
Okay. Question in the chat, Frank?
Yes, former comment. I don't think my comments have to be germane to this vote. I would like a few comments to be made.
Debate has to be germane to the motion on the floor.
I'm not sure that's correct.
It is correct. Robert's rules is here. You can come read it if you want to walk over.
All right, guys, please. Frank, please.
Yeah, then I will wait for public discussion on public comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The motion on the floor is to protest lifted essentials. All those in favor of protest, please raise your hands.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, that's a good question. I mentioned the businesses on the line. I don't know if there's a question.
Yes, can Mr. Zhao, if you have 30 seconds or a question for you, is your business? If he wants to speak, if he wants to, he would like to speak.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. I'm the counsel for the establishment, actually the owners on the line as well. So we wanted to come here to present, but I guess we only have 30 seconds. So maybe if there's another forum, we can formally present as well.
Yeah, I do want to apologize. I think we unfortunately missed each other for the committee meeting, and we are being doing the mayor's budget issue. We have to rapidly finish this current meeting now, but I think we will coordinate with you and the ANC, or we are the ANC, but we will coordinate with you. We'll coordinate with the SMD. We would encourage you to meet with the SMD commissioner. That's Commissioner Kenzik, as well as myself. I'm the chair of the alcohol committee meeting, and we can hope to draft to come up, but discuss this after this meeting.
Yeah,
but we do have to take this protest vote, otherwise we miss our deadline.
We're going to work with you, Mr. Zhao. We're going to work with you. Don't take the protest as something negative. It's just a protocol. You're going to be good.
All those in favor, please raise your hands. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in favor. I abstain. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Final one, Elmina.
Listen, I like businesses. I want them to be successful. I just want to say this clearly, and it's not even that we need to protest necessarily. I just wanted to be for the record that this establishment has already a couple been stopped at least 3 or 4 times by DOB for illegal building. They've been issued fines. They've been building a legal roof. They've been just doing a lot of bad things before they moved in to be a good neighbor. Furthermore, just in the last 2 months, as I pushed working with the city, they've already been issued about 3 $1,000 fines because of the garbage they've been leaving in their back. You can go back there right now; it's probably there. So I'm just saying, I really would like to work closely with this owner because it's not giving a good luck coming in the community.
The motion would be to protest the renewal of Elmina on the grounds of peace, order, quiet, everything applicable.
Thank you, Chair.
There's a second to the motion. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Unless there's any really quick questions. Very quick.
This is something that the ANC will then have to seek reinstatement from ABCA because
Correct.
we missed the protest. And if it's only on trash, Commissioner Kinsick, have you approached the business?
Yeah. My speaker sounds.
I won't be supporting this. I don't think it's a relevant protest.
Yeah, that's true. We missed the deadline. We'll have to seek reinstatement. We can try it. It's just a request to the board, so it may not be allowed.
And I don't mind doing that legwork. And I understand why garbage shouldn't be a thing, but also the illegal building and the fact that they would build a legal deck on the roof, which we've had major issues. I know you're not in construction. I am. I have some concerns for it. That's just frankly, maybe you're worried about garbage. I'm worried about people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you. That's fine. All those in favor of the protest, please raise your hands. Or
aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, with 7 in favor and opposed 2. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Final thing I want to sneak in. We've had guests waiting here a long time. Letter of support for the African American Civil War
We're not
Memorial
sneaking it
Grimke
in.
School parking proposal on the 1900 block of Vermont Avenue Northwest. Very quickly, Commissioner Holden.
So the African American Civil War Museum is about to be opening after a long renovation in the Grimke School. Everyone's very excited about it. So this is an update. In 2022, the museum approached the ANC for a permit application to adjust the parking directly in front of their building. Way back when it was DC government employee parking only in kind of the interim use while the museum was being renovated. It was RPP parking. And now the proposal for the space only in front of the museum, not in front of any residences, is for a kind of museum parking 8 to 8 p.m. And then after 8 p.m., it would revert back to RPP parking. So the museum is proposing this for employees, but also visitors and volunteers to the museum, but still trying to share the spaces with the neighborhood. So they would be RPP only. The committee discussed this with Frank Smith from the museum, and it passed unanimously at the meeting.
Is there a second to the letter?
Can I ask some questions?
Yes, you may.
Second.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Smith. Thank you so much for being here and for sitting through this marathon meeting. It means a lot. I can tell once a legislator, always a legislator.
It takes me back to the good old days.
I just had some questions that my constituents had that I wanted to pass on to you to hopefully relay back to them. I think there were questions about whether you could elaborate on how you intend to use this parking, how it will be beneficial for the museum's mission and the work you're doing.
Okay. Well, there's no way we can operate without some parking. You probably noticed already. And we're trying to find a way to operate and also share the space with the community. We know there's a parking issue here, and there are a number of other issues being debated about parking, including bike lanes, and then there's this amusement parking or some of the new category that I don't know much about. So there are a lot of things going on, but so we all have to try to find a way to get along, and that's what our proposal does. We think it's fair, and it brings it actually adds residential parking to a neighborhood which, when the city was in there was government parking only 24/7. There was no resident parking allowed there at all. So we're actually not the government, and we're a better neighbor than that.
One quick follow-up question. I know that there's the proposed bus zone right now. I was wondering why in the current proposal that wouldn't be shared resident parking as well, for the 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. hours and then the weekend.
Well, on one end of it, there's the on the lower end, the south end of it. That is that area is where the entrance is to the rear of the building. So there's no parking there at all now. On the other end, we have to have we need to have a way to pull up. We won't allow bus parking because people already know this, because there's no bus parking downtown. You can pull over and drop your patient off. You have to go find some parking for the bus. And there's only one space there anyway. So we couldn't, if we let some bus park there, that means no other buses would able to get there. So we'll be very careful about that to get them out of there when they're.
I guess just for elaboration, the bus parking space is in the plan from 2 years ago. It says no parking, museum bus stop parking only 24 hours.
Right.
Would it be a possibility to have that like after hours be RPP parking?
I suppose we could do that. Although that area now is the primary entryway into those expensive condominiums that are now built in the museum, in the place where the museum used to be, in the old auditorium and annex.
Okay, at that gate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would block there from the street. It would block there. I mean, we don't have a problem with that, but I bet you they would.
Could we potentially add an amendment asking for that, or how would we go?
Well, we wrote a letter of support, not a resolution, so we don't have any like real asks. It's just saying we support that plan.
Could we say that we also support, allowing resident parking from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. in that zone?
There used to be a curb cut there, but there's not a curb cut there anymore. The condition of the curb changed.
We weren't required to put a curb cut there, so we didn't put one there. Although,
well, it looks nice without it, so I'm glad you didn't put it there.
although there'll be an issue with people getting across there with wheelchairs and things like that.
I think if it's something that you support and that we support in terms of the nighttime parking, then we could add that in.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if we can get that there. We definitely will look into that.
I would suggest we adopt this now. We can always send another letter with a little piece. All right.
Mr. Smith, I just had a quick question.
Yep.
Sorry. Mr. Smith, how much community outreach have you done?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
How much community outreach has been done related to the parking proposal?
Oh, well, we went to the hearing that was held by the committee, and remember, we got the ANC passed this a long time ago, So we're asking you to reinstate a
Can I-
letter you
real
you
quick,
sent
not-
us in 22.
Not to interrupt
So-
you, sir. Also, I had that was one of my concerns about people losing parking spaces. And I know that Commissioner Barrio, a couple people actually reached out, did some feeling with the neighbors. And I think that it's okay. And it sounds good to me now.
Quick question in the chat from the community. Why is it necessary to reserve the museum parking until 8 p.m.? Will the museum be open that late?
Yes, we will be open that late. We're I think this person asked about this at the hearing because they went on our website, and I think the website still says we close at 5 p.m. The museum is not open at all now, so when it reopens in the fall, it will stay open until 8 p.m.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the question. Anything further? All those in favor of the letter, please raise your hands.
Aye.
I count 9. The letter is adopted. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you all very much. I
Thank you. Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
sitting through.
All right.
Appreciate the visit. Hope you had some pizza while you were waiting.
Well, I had some pizza, but also let me invite the commission to join us for Juneteenth.
Yeah.
On June 19th at 11 a.m. We're going to read the names of 4,000 soldiers who went with the General Granger to Galveston, Texas, to announce that the Emancipation Proclamation had passed and the war was over. They were now free.
Right. Wow. And the reopening of the museum?
Is November of this year. We put it off when the city's budget got frozen. Some of our money got frozen in there, so now we got to wait on them to unfreeze. So we can finish.
Thank you very much.
That T-shirt says "Stuff happens." So when it happens to everybody else, it happens to us too.
Thank you very much. All right. The rest of the
Thank you.
business will have to be postponed until the next meeting. Thank you very much, everyone. Adjourning the meeting at 9:10 p.m. Have a good night. Thank you.
Happy Pride.
Good night. Thank you. Happy Pride, everyone.